What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Second Guessing with Stressan. I'm your host, Garrett Williams, aka Texans commenter. Today, we're joined by Chancellor Johnson. This has been one that we've been trying to connect on a while. We kind of both have dynamic schedules, but finally making it happen. So, Chancellor, how you doing, man?
Man, I am blessing. Thanks for having me on, man.
Hey, let's go. It's already a good interview, man. I appreciate that. But yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Chancellor Johnson had worked for KPRC Channel 2, correct? For
Yep,
what, 3 years?
3 years.
And
Yep, yep.
and yeah, and so now we can kind of get into it. He's kind of, it seems like he's doing his own thing, and we can learn about that. But on the bottom here, the ticker, it has all his info on Instagram. It's KPRC2 Chancellor. On X and TikTok is Chancellor TV, and then YouTube is Chancellor 13J. So if you don't already, please go give him a follow and subscribe on all the various stuff. But yeah, man, kind of like I mentioned before the show, like my whole, premise on this is for me to get to know, those people in our local Houston media, and as a result, the audience. So with that being said, if you don't mind, just, give me a background on yourself, as detailed or, as short as you'd like, but, kind of finish with, what led you to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. And also too, IG is you can add me on one has the word one more underscore chance. I only say that because if you go to KPRC2, I'm no longer on there since I'm not at KPRC2, which you didn't know that. It's cool. I'm just letting you. So I don't want anybody to be like, oh, I followed you, and then like I didn't see it because I don't have access to that account anymore. But anyways, yeah.
My bad.
So no, you're good. You're good. So I'm from Houston, so this is home for me.
Let's
Grew
go.
up here. Yep, grew up in the H. Went to Arizona State, graduated from there, the best journalism school in the country. And then I spent a couple years in Green Bay, which was an awesome experience covering the Packers. That's when they went to two NFC championships. There, covered the Bucks when they won their first title in 50 years. And this is all during the COVID era. And so I was up there in Green Bay. Had never seen snow a day in my life, of course, coming from Houston, then to Arizona, and then to Wisconsin. It was a completely different world for me up there. Don't miss it. Great job covering the Packers and being up there at obviously an iconic stadium like Lambeau was fantastic, and obviously they were good too, right? The star power there, but this was during Aaron Rodgers' MVP season. Devontae Adams, he is probably the most fun I've had covering a guy because he was just so darn good. The years, it was prime there in Green Bay. And I got a chance to come back home to Houston, right? And so I had an opportunity to come back to KPRC, and so I spent 3 years there. And so now I'm just doing my own thing, and there's some opportunities coming up in the future. I'm really excited about, but I'm still here in Houston, hanging on and covering all the local teams. So it's definitely been fun.
That's awesome. And I think, the one thing I enjoy a couple things about what I've done, to where I'm at now, like obviously the community, meeting people, but, like the appreciation that I've gained for people in the media, such as yourself. Like, I don't even know what to call myself, but I kind of get a little bit of the taste of the world y'all live in. And so, like, I tell a lot of my guests, like, like yourself, like, I got a lot of respect for you guys. I mean, it seems like it's, a tough industry to be in. Like people just assume who don't know about it that it's easy and you can get any job and get paid this and that. But my takeaway is like the hours are crazy, and you got to really love what you do. So hats off to you. But I would be remiss if we didn't talk about your past. I mean, that's really cool. You mentioned being in Green Bay and being around Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. So to make it Texans related, as well as you mentioned the Bucks, so you're around Tom Brady a little bit. Have you noticed anything from those two quarterbacks, two of the best quarterbacks of all time? Any characteristics, about them, and maybe seen some of that in CJ Stroud by chance? Or
Yeah, so for one, when I say Bucks, I mean Milwaukee Bucks. So this is when
oh,
Giannis.
my bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, my bad. I know
because yeah,
because you covered the Super Bowl too, but that was
yep,
just a one-off. Yeah, my bad.
yep. So yeah, so this was so Green Bay is probably about an hour and a half away from Milwaukee. So so I was covering the Brewers a little bit there too. Madison is probably about another hour and a half away, and separate part of the state. But yeah, just to answer your question though, I would say that the similarities, if you want to talk about at least like Rodgers and Stroud, I'd probably say like just locker room leadership. Getting a chance to really get to know CJ over these past couple of years. I mean, the guy's level, man. Like, and like he's a really cool and funny guy. That's another thing too that's really underrated. He's super funny. And so like we'll be in the locker room and he'll talk trash with the guys. We can, we'll talk sports, whether it's basketball. We'll definitely talk faith. It's a number of different things, but I would say his leadership and his way to galvanize guys. Now they just do it a little bit differently. I think with Rodgers, he just been there for so long, and obviously he was a staple there. Like still to this day, like Rodgers, he's obviously one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen in the history of the game, but also of course in Green Bay. With C.J. Stroud, he's kind of your guy's guy, right? Like guys love hanging around him, and it helps that he's really good. And so for him to be year three and for the Texans, for them to feel comfortable, like, hey, we have our guy. We can look elsewhere. We can build a roster, knowing we can build around this guy is really important, right? Because I mean, obviously, for fans listening to the stream, and I'm sure you know very well, like here in Houston, outside of really Deshaun Watson and Matt Schaub, it's just kind of like, can we find the guy, right? And so, now the Texans, they know they have that in C.J. Stroud, and so let's see if they can maximize this rookie window that he's in on.
And it's not only do we have the guy like with the physical ability, it's like he checks every box. Like the leadership side of it, like you mentioned, and we just talked about, like is pretty underrated. And that's pretty cool that you mentioned, the way he leads. Like, I almost feel like I know the guy just from like I'm obsessed with the Texans and watch every interview and every deal. So like, basically what you described, like in the locker room, sounds like what I think he'd be like. I mean, he sounds like somebody like, and also to the point, you have to be good, but like he seems like the kind of guy who just commands the room, but does it like in a great way where he like lightens the mood. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of us are guarded or anxious or got this and that going on. He seems like someone who can joke in a polite way to kind of let you just like have your guard go down and be like, bro, like we're chilling, we're all good. So like that's kind of the vibe, I guess, is what you notice, like just kind of getting everybody in a good mood.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would say I really noticed it when Joe Mixon came over. And last year being his first year with the Texans, all he knew was, well, it was pretty much Joe Burrow. And so, you come into a different situation, new organization, and he's a guy that, like, we had conversations both on and off the record where he's talked about just like, yeah, it helped that like he had a quarterback that he felt like he could trust. He had a quarterback that he felt like he could win with. And so, especially with Joe Mixon, he's gotten paid before. And so now he wants to win, right? Like, and you always want to win, but like that really is super important, right? For some guys, like, hey, I didn't get paid, and I understand, but with a guy like C.J. Stroud, is a guy that you can, you trust on the field and off the field. You can kick it with him, and so and it helps too that he also knows how to lock in moments, right? Like he knows how to command the room when it's time to get settled. Or hey, we're not doing this right. He'll get on you, and I remember this conversation I had with Laramie Tunsil, in the locker room. I was curious, like, especially like last year when the offensive line, obviously they had their struggles. I was like, well, what does CJ say, right? Like, how does he approach the room? Because of course he's not going to publicly, bash his teammates, but in the locker room is a little bit of straightening. He said he definitely knows how to do it. Now, obviously, they still struggled at times, but like CJ, he wants to be great, and he demands greatness from everybody around him. And so, as you just mentioned, the Texans certainly have their guy for the future.
Well, he sounds like he's doing it the right way. Like I believe me and Seth Payne talked about this last week, like leadership, but it was more so about D'Amico. But I guess it's relevant for a quarterback too. But like, I feel like there's a couple ways to lead. Like one is like, to be like the intimidating alpha, like you just do what I say out of intimidation, or it's like out of respect, which is what D'Amico does. Like he cares about you. So now when he asks you to do something, it's not like I'm just bossing you around, like you trust me. And so it kind of sounds like it's the same approach with CJ. Like we just talked about how he can joke around, lighten the mood, make that bond, but he also has that delicate balance of like, now I can flip the switch, like, and know when not to be buddy buddy and be serious. So I think that's something that's kind of overlooked. Would you kind of agree with that sentiment a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely think too, it helps that he came in his rookie season and had such a great year that once again, you earn the respect early on with your play on the field. And so now, he can just be himself, right? As far as you don't have to be, this super macho guy, because that's not really him. But at the same time, like he's a competitor. And as I'm sure you guys you've seen that, whether it's in interviews or whether it's on the field, he has a little bit of fire to him, but he also knows how to gauge different people because everybody reacts differently, and that's part of being a leader. You can't treat everybody the same way. You might not be able to completely cuss out a guy all the time. I'm not saying that's CJ Stroud, but whether you're a CJ or you're a coach, right? Some guys you might have to talk to a little bit differently, right? And at the end of the day, as long as you're working towards winning, which the Texans have done for the most part his first 2 years here, I think everybody naturally will fall in line.
Well, that's a good point too. I mean, Tom Brady's one of his idols, and like you mentioned, he wants to be great. Like it's no secret if you follow him and listen to him, like the way he talks, like he'll profess that. But Brady's talked about being a good teammate is like above and beyond, and like what we're talking about now is like one of Brady's biggest things, and probably is why he is the GOAT. I mean, if you think about it, like everyone in the NFL is like neck and neck, and now if you can motivate your teammates to play that 1% better, but he talks about the way of doing it is by getting them to like you and respect you. And so now when you do ask them to play, hard, like they'll give you that extra effort. It sounds like he's taking the same approach. So, I definitely like where that's going. But
Mhm.
I'll ask another question just on your background. We can kind of shift towards some other topics. But, Jonathan Alexander, he works for the Chronicle. I had him on months ago. I think it's similar with anybody who starts out their career in journalism. You kind of, bounce around or start certain places. He has started at Carolina. So I kind of just asked him to, juxtapose the two, like, your experience in Green Bay to covering the Texans, just as far as like the organization and how things run. And it could be just any answer. It doesn't have to be, I'm not asking for like, some negative stuff for either franchise, but did you just notice anything difference between the two or similar, or what are your takeaways when you compare them?
Yeah, it's a major difference between here in Houston and Green Bay. I would say when I was in Green Bay, I mean, the town and the area just eats, sleeps, and breathes Texans. They also don't have any other competition, right? And also they just have a history of winning and just just being within the area, right? Houston's still naturally a newer organization, when you talk about across other teams in the league, and so they're also competing against the Astros, the Rockets, college football, whether it's you're a UT fan or a Texas A&M fan. But if you're when I was in Green Bay, it's just the Packers. Like literally, that's it. And so, not only that is just like having a football team. They've always been good. They've always had a quarterback. Whether it was before Aaron Rodgers, of course, it was Brett Favre, and then before then, it was another star quarterback. And then now, like they do it the Green Bay way, where they have a quarterback in waiting, and sure enough, they have Jordan Love, who's a talented QB and a guy that you feel like you can win with. At least if you're a Packers fan. And so that's probably the biggest thing is just the fandom, and like it's no way a slight at the Texans. It's just more of a compliment to the Packers and the way they do things, and just like the fandom there. They have family night where it's a one of the last training camp practices of the year. It is free, and they fill up the entire Lambeau Field, and
That's
fans come
dope,
from
dude.
Madison, Milwaukee, and they just it's a bunch of kind of like one-on-one drills, and it's a lot of fun. And so
Why don't we do that? That would be so lit. That they would pack that out, dude.
it would, and so like it's that's the thing, like would fans pull up for? I mean, it's
I
free.
would.
Would they pull up NRG Stadium? And that's
I
yeah.
think we
Next time I
would,
see you
bro.
here,
If
man.
you promote it,
Yeah, for sure. But
they need to
next time I
put
see
us
you
in
here,
charge of
man,
that. We'll make it happen.
yeah, look, I'm telling them tap in with Stressans. I'm telling them tap in with Stressans. I have to lead the charge. But yeah, so the fandom there is crazy, man. And the other thing too, I would say when I was in Green Bay, the access was a little bit tighter there than here it is here in Houston. Just like that's not a slight at Green Bay. It's more of a compliment to Texas PR staff. I remember when I came here during training camp, they allow you to have one-on-ones. That was foreign to me in Green Bay. Like you get the guys at the podium, and that's kind of it. And naturally, you have locker room access, and just like you do anywhere else. But I would say the access is a little bit looser here. But I certainly enjoyed my time while I was in Green Bay. The home games there, it's definitely a lot more energy. They get there on time, and this is the reality. We all know. We're in Houston, whether it's a Rockets
Mhm.
game, whether it's a Texas game, no kickoff starts. And you're like, all right, fans still trickling in. In Green Bay, that wasn't the case. So those are kind of the major differences. But obviously, definitely enjoyed my time here when I was in Green Bay. But certainly happy to be back home here in Houston.
Well, that's cool you pointed that out. So I had talked to Steph Stradley a couple weeks ago or a month ago on here as well, and she's written for the Chronicle and whatnot. But we pretty much just talked about that topic for like an hour. I mean, that's a debatable topic. I think a lot of people do agree. Like it is frustrating. Like there's everyone on here is a diehard fan, but we kind of get frustrated with the overall fandom. And you mentioned there's a multitude of factors. Houston, big city, spread out, a lot of competition, a lot of transplants, and then the games. That's an issue too, getting in there on time, and it could be a multitude of reasons, traffic, or maybe fans aren't as diehard. But I truly think though, like obviously time is against us. Green Bay has been around since the inception, like who knows how long ago that was. And we're the newest franchise, so that's definitely against us. But I do think, and I'll ask you this if you agree, but if and when the Texans win a Super Bowl, I feel like all that stuff will change, bro. Like you're going to gain all these fans, call them bandwagon or not, but like that's what it's going to take. A lot of these transplants that were Oilers fans or, Cowboys fans that live here that are kind of on the fence. Do you think like if we were to like have like a serious run that could really be like the impetus to kind of change that?
It certainly would help. I think that it just takes years of winning, right? And it's not like I said, this is not a slight or shade at Texans fans because it's not the only organization, but that's one thing that makes like when you talk about Green Bay, Pittsburgh, let's see, Cowboys fans, however you feel about them, like they do show up kind of, pretty much for the most part all the time. And so like it just is what it is. I do think a Super Bowl certainly would help, but I have to see it, right? And we haven't seen that here in Houston yet. And so I think maybe it would take maybe Super Bowl plus another postseason run. I think it helps too though that they have stars. That's another big thing. Because remember a
Stroud,
couple
dude.
years ago when they were losing, they had nobody to really cheer for, right? People were buying, Damian Pierce jerseys because like there was really nobody else. And shout out to Damian Pierce, no shade, but like there was no quarterback in place. Nico
Hmm.
hadn't really broken out yet, and like now you have some really serious top end talent from Stroud to Joe Mixon, who's a perennial Pro Bowl guy, Nico Collins, Derek Stingley, Will Anderson. The list goes on and on and on. So I think winning and star power, which a lot of times they kind of go hand in hand, I think those help. And I think one day we certainly could see NRG Stadium packed out consistently.
And and like online presence too. And I agree, like, me being online and interacting with, thousands, millions, however many fans I interact with, is a lot. But like I've noticed too, like CJ Stroud, like, all right, now we have like Ohio State fans that
Yep.
follow us. And, so now you got that sector and he's religious. So some people, like his face. So then you get fans like that. And, now he's going to international trips. So he might get international fans. So, but yeah, I think it's a slow building process. And, it's good to hear you say that. I think we definitely all agree, but I definitely think it's going in the right direction. But like again, and I guess when we talk to like and I'm not saying you're saying this, but like when people, if they're criticizing the fans, it's not the fans, it's the people that aren't fans. Like, the fans are the fans. And so it's
I
like
agree.
the other people that are on the fence, I don't even know what you call them, the potential fans, like y'all need to get on, bro.
For
um,
sure, for sure. And the other thing too, I'll say, it's also these tickets ain't cheap. And I look at like I know at Rockets games how they do things like the club level. A lot of times they sell those out to companies, and sometimes those seats will just be empty. But that doesn't change the fact that I know there's a very large Rockets fan base, people who watch every single game and every single minute. Same thing with the Texans. So it's not like I'm not putting the blame solely, on Texans fans. It's a lot of different
mhm.
factors. But I did certainly have seen more interest naturally that comes with winning.
Yeah, and like, everyone has their own opinion, but like to me, football's king. Like I don't care. I mean, a lot of people say baseball town, whatever. It's an interesting debate, but like, in the heyday, like when Watt had like that MVP caliber year, and like we're in the playoffs, and the NRG was rocking. Like you've seen what it can be, and like now,
Sure.
like the past 2 years in the playoffs, like okay, like I feel like people, we've kind of been up and down, and I feel like people are just so scared to kind of get emotionally hurt, so they're like
Yeah.
waiting to get back in. So hopefully it's on the up and up. But enough on that topic. What kind of transition? Like you're a well versed Houston sports fan, and you're a big basketball guy. You got the finals hat on.
Mhm.
Obviously we had some crazy moves with the Rockets. If you just want to first, give me your thoughts on the KD trade.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited, and I think every fan should be. We look at a Houston Rockets team that just won 52 games, finished second in the West, took the very experienced Golden State Warriors team to 7 games, and was 1 game from advancing. And you see how you could have seen how they would have fared off against a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves. How far could they have taken that thing? We'll never know because they got bounced, and all they did was upgrade from Jalen Green to one of the best basketball players of all time in Kevin Durant. And so, I'm probably higher on Jalen Green than most other people, but I certainly understand the timing of it was time to move on. And so, as I kind of put it, I think the talent is still there for Jalen Green. The issue is the Rockets just didn't have time to continue to wait on that. And so, If you can, anytime you can upgrade to an all timer and Kevin Durant, you got to do it. And the thing that I like to it is it makes sense. Like he fits in seamlessly. You don't have to really do too much because you have, one of the top defenses in the league. And now what you were missing was a bucket getter. So you get one of the best ones we've ever seen. He's the best scorer I've seen in my lifetime, as far as how easy he makes it look. I'll never forget. It was back in, I think it was a January game or maybe February, where the Suns were in town, and it was me and B Scott. We were sitting next to each other, and Kevin Durant had 37
Shout
that
out
game.
B Scott,
Yeah, B Scott, that's
friend of
my
the
guy.
show.
Yep, absolutely. And so KD kept hitting tough shot after tough shot. We're talking about fadeaways. We're talking about runners. And I remember like he had a shot, and me and B Scott just turned to each other. We just gave each other a look. There's no cheering in the press box. No, what there would be anyways, but we just looked at each other like this is just so silly. And so I'm excited just to see just an all time talent and see where he can take this thing. But obviously for me, like I'm super excited about it. I'm excited to cover Durant in this Rockets team, and I'm excited for the fans, who have an opportunity to really see what this young Rockets team can do in the West. And I don't think a championship is off the table. You traded for Kevin Durant for a reason. And I think, the Texans are legit Super Bowl contenders. We got to figure out the offensive line. And the Rockets, I think they're NBA title contenders, and the Astros, as we've seen year after year,
Oh
they're
man,
right there with any other team. And so the Houston Cougars, right? Like they just went to the Final Four, they retooled, and so it's a good time to be a Houston sports fan. And listen, we can always say that, in recent history, but certainly good times here in the city.
facts. And like I know some people like are superstitious and don't want to be overconfident and jinx it, but like my opinion is like if your teams have a chance, like enjoy the hype all the way up. Like rather like if you want to like emotionally guard yourself and like not root for them to prevent being let down, and the next thing you know your team wins, you're gonna regret that as soon as they win. Like man, I could have enjoyed every second of it. So that's kind of how I am. As a fan, you can probably see with my content like I enjoy every second of all this stuff, bro, because I know the Texans will win a Super Bowl sometime this decade, like for a fact. I feel like they're good enough to do so. I feel the same way about the Rockets now. The Astros have already done it, and they feel like they can do it again. And you mentioned the Cougars, like they're not even getting talked about. They're probably the odds-on favorite next year, are they?
Yep. So they'll be at worst a top two team, going into next year. Them and Purdue.
Yeah, that was tough, man. I was at that Natty game, bro.
I
We
wasn't.
had that, man. We had that. We had that. Um, I felt like the refs sold, bro. Like they had the first half refed one way, let them play, and then all of a sudden they start getting aggressive. And Florida, like to me, like the second half, they really didn't score a lot of field goals. It was all free throws, man. That was tough, man.
Yeah, there was a moment where the Gators were called for a foul, and the coach, I believe, he took a technical just to let the refs know he felt like things weren't being called the right way. And ever since
And it's,
then, I think things shifted, and it's too bad that the Cougs couldn't win that the championship, and just because it's just so hard. And so you could have a great team, and it's a super talented team. It just doesn't guarantee you anything. Once you get to the tournament, you look at Duke, how they beat Duke, right? We just watched the NBA draft where they had 3 top 10 picks. And Duke is Duke, but they won't have a Cooper Flag, Con Knipple, and their big man. That type of talent on one team probably for another very long time. They talk about Cooper Flag generational for a reason, and so they got bounced by Houston with the way they collapsed in that game. And so it's just so hard to win. It would have been nice to see Houston have kind of completed that story with the championship, but of course, what an awesome run they had throughout the season, winning the Big 12 regular season tournament, and getting all the way to the Final Four. It was certainly fun to cover throughout.
Man, that Duke win was historic, man. I feel like it's not talked about enough. And then, I really felt like this was the Cougars' year. And even then, it's like it's really hard. Like that tournament's insane. You get the run, and they had a ridiculous gauntlet to run through. And Florida might not even been the best team they played, like playing Gonzaga, Purdue, obviously Duke.
Nah, I'd say Duke. No, Florida's good.
Yeah, I
Florida,
think. Well, I guess the game. I guess like maybe you think, but I guess like you come off of beating Duke, like a game you
sure.
probably could have, should have, would have lost, and like now you're like, okay, now we got to beat Florida. But regardless, I guess I mean you're probably right. I guess my point is like to agree with you, it's hard to win. So as long as you have a chance, that's good. But I think the one thing, like the reason I thought that is Kelvin Sampson. Obviously, and I'll ask you too. I know you've been doing work with him. Kelvin Sampson and the culture. Like, and I feel like in this NIL era, there's not a lot of continuity. Programs are just bouncing guys left and right. I think especially in basketball, college basketball, I feel like the teams that have outside of like your big couple schools like Duke who just get freak athletes and throw the best five out there, you need to have like a legit team. And normally the teams that you see that make deep runs, in my opinion, outside those outliers are experienced guys that are smart and you've been in these situations. And so now we've been stacking that year by year. Is that kind of your same thing you've noticed? And then on the back end of that, tell us a little bit about what you've got going with Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah, I think continuity certainly helps, and as you mentioned it in this NIL era, guys they're almost like mercenaries, right? They'll just hop on from program to program, and it does kind of take some of the fun out of college basketball when you might not be able to follow a guy throughout the program, as he looks for the next biggest check. But at the same time, I get your money. It just would be nice to see guys kind of stick in one area, and so that's one thing about UH is they just don't have a ton of transfers who leave the program, and that's a credit to Kelvin Sampson and the program there. And as you mentioned, that C word that they love to use, culture. And so yeah, it certainly helped them. The culture has actually helped them win games. I think culture helped
The
them
Duke
win
game.
at the Duke
Sorry.
game, right? Like they just didn't give up, and so and just defensively the identity and staying on them and just make sure they stay close enough just to give themselves a chance. And sure enough, they were able to ultimately win that game. And so, as you mentioned, I've had an opportunity to talk to Kelvin about it, and I've had this series going since I was in college. It's called Film Don't Lie, and so men lie, women lie, the film doesn't. And so,
Eye in the sky
yeah,
don't
so
lie, baby.
yep, film don't lie. And so I started when I was at Arizona State. Was able to do it there, and then took it till I was in Green Bay. I had a chance to actually do to do it with Devontae Adams as far as the interview goes, and so that was really cool. And then coming back here, I've done it with U of H people. I've done it with Andre Johnson. That was great, man. To have him sit
Yeah.
down and I got him to give me the rundown of the beating of Cortland Finnegan. Like that was probably one of my favorite moments I've had in my career. And so with Kelvin to have one of the best college basketball coaches of all time give me some genuine insight. I thought that was great. And I think fans responded well to it, and that's the type of stories I like to kind of create content in that fashion where you guys tell stories and give insight. And so hopefully I was able to do that with the latest one.
Yeah, I've watched all of them, and you've done a great job. And so I
Appreciate it.
think you have accomplished that. And I meant to say this earlier too. Like, it's cool too, like meeting the different media personalities. Like everyone kind of has their own lane or own like
Sure.
way of doing things. And I will say, like, I really like your personality and the way you report. Like, you're super energetic and fun. Like, you're engaging, bro. Like when especially like when you were on air, you kind of like jumping over here, jumping over there. So like
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like whenever I watch your stuff, I'm locked in, like I'm
I
hyped. So
appreciate it.
I
I
appreciate the
appreciate it.
energy, man. I need to
Absolutely. No,
take some notes. I'm kind of like a dull, just lame white dude, so I need to learn how to.
no, man. No, you're very personable. And even I want to go back to what you were saying earlier because I was thinking about this. You're talking about fandom, and I think what you do is important to growing the brand and keeping fans engaged. When I was in Green Bay, they have one of the largest kind of blogs and like fan sites in Cheesehead TV. And they've actually been able to parlay it to certain opportunities. And I think that's something now that that's more prevalent now than when I first got in it, where like with how you're doing your thing, like you can continue to do it, and I'm sure you've had one before, like get your own interview, right? Where your platform might be bigger than people who on the beat, right? And so people follow that, and how you go about posting clips and putting stuff out to fans that maybe other people aren't doing. So like all that stuff, like I think adds up to the fandom. That was kind of off note, but like to
Yeah.
your point earlier about building fan bases, like I think whether it's you or other people who, like I say, aggregate in just in any fashion, like
Hmm.
that is important to keeping fans active and engaged. So, like, I mean, you're all part of kind of the media sphere in general.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's a great community. And so shout out like all I guess I'll call them content creators, but there's many people like myself that aggregate. I mean, I'm crazy. I probably do it way too much, but people aggregate, people have shows just like me. Like that's to me the beauty of having technology. It allows everyone to have a voice and and that's good because not everybody likes the same personality or information. Like I tend to be a positive guy. Some people probably like people who keep it super real and are pessimistic or whatever it may be. But that's the joy of this world we live in with the technology. One of the good things. There's also some bad things that come with it, but it allows many options for people to choose what they want. So, but yeah, and so like that's my whole thing too. Is like this has been organic. I haven't like set out to do this with any goal in mind. It's just been a natural progression. I never thought I would be like on camera talking. I hate hearing my own voice, and like I found out because I'm obsessed with sports and the Texans, like I just lock in and like black out and don't even think about anything. I just talk. So it's been fun. And I guess like what I call myself is like, I don't know if this has been coined before, but a fan analyst. I call myself a fanalist.
Okay.
And I think it's like a new wave, like you mentioned. And, in the Texans world, we got plenty of them. So,
Absolutely.
But yeah, let's just tie a bow on some of the Rocket stuff. We're about 30 minutes in. Are you good on time for now?
Yeah, I'm chilling. We
Okay,
we
cool.
hanging out. We kicking it.
All right, dope. Yeah. So I mean, we talked about the KD trade. I agree. I love the move. I feel like he was a perfect fit. I feel like we didn't give up too much. Maybe you can expand on that part too as well. But there's a lot of small benefits from that as well. Like I think we're in the win now mode, much like the Texans are. You're being aggressive, but you now have young guys who can benefit. Same thing with Texans. You bring in certain veterans where it helps guys. So maybe if you want to add more there, and then the Ime Udoka extension. Just now, the Fred VanVleet, I guess, was that a whole new contract where they basically got him for half the amount of money, and just the re-signing of Steven Adams at a decent deal. So maybe highlight those moves and your thoughts on Raphael Stone, with those moves and where it's headed.
Yeah, I would say technically the new NBA season or new NBA year hasn't officially started yet. That's why the Kevin Durant trade isn't official yet. Hasn't officially started yet. But the Rockets
Is
are kind of
that
already
why, like on the screen, they put the Rockets? Like, why don't you just
yeah.
change it, bro?
It's so weird because like why not? And I think it's kind of unfair to the the draft the
He even
guys
puts
who
on the
drafted
Rockets
him.
hat, right?
Yeah, it's like if
What are we
he's going
doing?
there, I don't understand it. It's like it doesn't make sense to me. Like, yeah, if you want to be technical, is it worth kind of ruining essentially a moment? In a way, it does, right? Like the
Yeah.
memories and the pictures you always have, guys holding up their hat, and like if that's not going to be the place you're going to end up at, it just doesn't make sense to me. But whatever. Anyways, point is, with the offseason just kind of getting underway, you could make the argument, and I don't think anybody would go against it, that the Rockets are certainly in first place in how they've already upgraded their team. We've already kind of talked about Kevin Durant and the move, to bring in a future Hall of Famer and how great a move that is, and considering they gave up Jalen Green, as I mentioned. I'm higher on him, but Dylan Brooks, he's a tough loss as well, with the toughness, the grit that he brought to the team. But fortunately, you have a guy like Amin Thompson, who's an All NBA defender. And only in year two, you have Tari Eason, who maybe this year he'll be able to play in back-to-backs and not miss as much time. And so Jabari Smith, the list goes on. They certainly have capable defenders. So you lose Dylan Brooks, but overall, and then of course the number 10 pick, but to get a Hall of Famer, like that's a deal that I think any organization would make. And so you close the book on the chapter, or put a pin on that conversation. You move on to Steven Adams, who provided tremendous value for the Rockets throughout the season and into the postseason, where they had a matchup advantage over the Warriors. They couldn't figure out how to stop that double big lineup between he and Alperen Sengun for a good chunk of those games there. And so to bring him back and his veteran leadership, I think is huge. And then Fred VanVleet taking a pay cut, and I think it works out for VanVleet as well too, because it's a 2-year extension, and that allows him to get at least one more big payday before naturally he gets up in age. And so it's a win for both teams. The Rockets, they save some money. Fred VanVleet can hit the open market once again at least one more time before his career trajectory.
He gets to play with KD and a chance to
play
compete
with
for a
KD.
title. That's probably the
Yep.
biggest thing, right? Like, I have to play with KD, bro. Like, people respect the hell out of KD in the league.
Absolutely. and so, who wouldn't want to play with a top 15 player of all time, right? And a guy who's a winner. And so, between that and then what was the other move that happened? There was something else. I'm blanking on it. What else happened? Steven Adams.
Well, I was saying the Ime Udoka extension.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So like the Rockets, they've with the extending Ime Udoka, like obviously, you have your coach who helped turn this franchise around, for the foreseeable future. I mean, Raphael Stone, I think he's one of the best GMs in the NBA, and that's that's the thing though too, man. That like you can't take for granted. I mean, because fans, as if you show up as a fan, and this is my favorite team. Obviously, you have no control really over the team and their moves. And so if you're and think about the Maverick, if you're a Mavericks fan before they got the number one pick,
Woo!
like who would have thought you would have traded Luka Doncic, and now they made the move. Like there's nothing you can do about it. Like he's gone, and now your franchise is the laughing stock of the NBA. Fortunately, you got bailed
Boy,
out
luck. That boy
on the lot.
lucked out.
Yeah, you got. But at the same time, like if you either have to just stop being a fan altogether, or you just have to live with, man, my GM or my organization doesn't know what they're doing. And so with the Rockets, you certainly can't say that, especially how they decided, hey, look, we're going to tear this thing down, we're going to rebuild. We want everybody to be patient, and now here they are, with an opportunity to contend for a title. So major props to Rafael Stone and the job that he's been able to do, as a general manager for the Houston Rockets.
It's crazy to me. Like, I mean, obviously, there's so many fans, so you'll see varying opinions, but I feel like I see like slander on Rafael Stone too much, like mostly on Instagram. It's kind of funny how like certain apps of social media kind of have different thought processes. Like when I posted the KD trade on IG, people are like, oh, it's terrible. I'm like, what? Like, I try not to like put my opinion too much and I kind of save it for stuff like this, but I thought that was funny. And then also, too, something I've been saying, I'm sure we all agree, but like I've been saying it for a while, but the Rockets and the Texans are like so synonymous. It's insane, dude. Like just thinking about the GM, Rafael Stone and Nick Caserio, they're forward thinking. Like the moves that Rafael Stone has made with the James Harden trade initially to the Nets, he got their picks back, and I believe he chose their picks over other picks. And people said, "Oh, why would you do that? They got the big three; they're going to be great." Like, no, like he saw the. Maybe it's a little bit of luck or whatever,
it's
but
a gamble. It's a gamble for sure.
Yeah, but like you had to think that he probably thought, okay, like I think it's going to blow up. The chances of these picks being better than what they think, I can win on the margins there. And then he did the same thing again when they had the trade. Was it last year with the Nets again or with Phoenix?
Yep.
When they got the Phoenix picks.
Yeah, so they gave the Nets their picks back in exchange because when the Suns traded for Kevin Durant from Brooklyn, they gave them their picks. So Rafael Stone said, "I'll give you your picks back, but give me their picks." And so, I always kind of joke, I got to go to with Rafael Stone in Vegas because he knows how to gamble, and it's worked out. What's funny though? I'm glad you said that because I did notice that, and it is funny how that works on social media. Like apps respond differently depending on which social platform you're on. Twitter, you get a little bit of balance of like, some people will agree with, with whatever, and then you get some pushback. But like I saw that too, where like I was on Facebook and I saw people were like, oh, we gave up way too much. Like, no, like the consensus is no, that's not the case. And then the worst part is the reasoning will be terrible. Like if you don't have to agree, but like, all right, I'm willing to hear you out. And then if you're just tell me a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense, and Facebook is notorious for that. That's why I just kind of scroll. It is funny how like and you mentioned Instagram is different, and so is TikTok. Like if you go on NFL TikTok, you have here's my top 10 NFL wide receivers, and or here's my top 10 cornerbacks. Derek Stingley's like 10th best. What are we doing here, right? Like Collins is. He's a top 15. He's number 15 on the list. Like, and I don't know if it's maybe age. I don't know if it's like what the graphic is, but it is funny how like from Twitter to Facebook to Instagram to TikTok, you'll get different responses, and it's just that's so.
Well, you're just like me. You're on all of them too. So I mean,
right.
and like now that we're talking about, I'm thinking about it. Like, if anything, I would have to think age. Like TikTok seems to be the younger one. Instagram is more like the young to mid 30s. Facebook seems to be older. And then X is like everything, which that all kind of matches up. But yeah, it's very interesting. But yeah, like back to my analogy though with the Rockets and the Texans. So, Rafael Stone seems to be forward thinking, like those trades. He had the foresight to think ahead. Nick Caserio, a lot of the moves he makes, getting in front of contracts, like trading Laramie Tunsil, off, loading contracts, extending guys early, et cetera, et cetera. He seems to be forward thinking. They both had two of the biggest, quickest rebuilds in sports history, in my opinion. And they had very similar situations. They both had superstars who were disgruntled and wanted out, and they had a limited market and absolutely capitalized. But James Harden, they made a whole lot out of a terrible situation, and that's what we got now is basically built off of all of that, essentially. Same thing with Deshaun Watson, limited market, 3-4 teams. Our whole team now is built off of that. So, I mean, like that right there alone, you have two young former player defensive-minded head coaches who are they are about, culture. They're about effort, intensity, very likable. The style of play they play is very likable. You got some young stars. I mean, there's just so many similarities. I mean, have you noticed that? And is there anything you want to add to that? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly have noticed it. And the other big thing too, you have to get the picks right. And so, and I think both teams, for the most part, they're building blocks. They've done that. And I say that as they've just traded away Jalen Green, but still, like Alperen Şengün, who was, the second pick in that first round behind Jalen Green, and how he's turned himself into an all-star. A couple years ago, it was known as the Wemby draft. And look, I think most fans wanted an opportunity to get a guy like that, but to end up with the Min Thompson and to see his impact already in year two has been remarkable, right? And then you bit around pieces around that. You had Jabari Smith to you pick a guy with the Texans draft, right? So it's certainly a youth movement and a culture change. And look, when the Rockets started rebuilding, it was Steven Silas and they were terrible. And the culture wasn't there. Originally, it was but David Culley, right? And then you brought in D'Amico, who helped change, So yeah, there's definitely some parallels between the two franchises for sure.
yeah, and like and the great thing is they're both like ascending and like yeah, like we talked about it, right? They both have a chance to win a title, so that's good. I mean, so we've already covered Rockets, we've covered Cougars, we've talked Texans a little bit. I'd like to dive more into that. Obviously, you're credentialed, and we're at OTAs and minicamp. I guess just a generic question first to kind of ease our way in. Was there any like observations of things that stood out to you while you were there at practice?
Yeah. First of all, it was good just to see the guys back out there on the practice field, right? One thing I noticed is Nick Kelly's energy.
Yes.
He certainly brings it, and CJ Stroud is. And I know you saw like he acknowledged it. So whether it's the new OC, Jaden Higgins, he even looks like a
Mm.
tight end. And so I'm excited to see the two rookie wide receivers. Jalen Noel moves me. I like his quickness. And,
Pause.
and so it's yeah, that was that was crazy. But yeah, between the two wide receivers there, and they're both they're unique, right? And so I remember obviously when they got drafted, it was like taking two guys from the same university at the same position that's like different. But yeah, they're
Hmm.
different types of wide receivers. But I think they certainly will both be productive, year one. And so no missing time during mini camp, but from what I was able to tell, I really like his speed and his burst, and I think he can provide some value for them. Will Anderson flying around, he's setting himself up for, I think, a potential defensive player of the year type of season, right? And then Daniil Hunter, talking to him, he says, I think told us he put on 20 more pounds of muscle, and that guy, he's built like a unit. So yeah, it's been early on. I try not to do too much, over analyzing during when they're still in like shorts and stuff. But look, this time next month there'll be some pads, and we can really dive into it. But like I said, it's certainly nice to see those guys back on the field.
That's awesome. I mean, you basically told me like all the stuff I wanted to hear, and the main thing was like I would assume like if I were there that like which is what I'm hoping to hear. And so first thing you said was Nick Cayley's energy. Like to me, that's like that's what we need, bro. Like that juice on offense. And so like it's from what I gather through interviews and what you guys report, it really does seem like, and I'm super optimistic on this season, and I'm weighing a lot of that into Nick Cayley and what he can bring. And, a lot of it is obviously what he's capable of doing, but a lot of my assessment is also how bad it was. And so, I really feel like my opinion last year on the Texans was we had a Super Bowl caliber defense the entire time, even with the injuries late in the year. And all we needed was just an average to above average offense, slightly above average to be a legit contender. And unfortunately, we were like right around average to below average. So, with that being said, what do you think Nick Cayley can do, and what are your expectations for the offense and just the team overall next year?
Yeah, it's funny because I was having a conversation with somebody about this. I think it was like a couple weeks ago, where we were talking about when we discussed like, hey, the moves that the offense made. We talked about the offensive line and some of the weapons or whatever case might be. The one thing that I feel like we don't talk about enough, of like how can this offense improve, is the fact that they changed our offensive coordinator. Like that was major. It was massive considering I thought that Bobby Slowick, the job as a coach is to put your your players in your team in the best positions to succeed. I did not think that Bobby Slowick did that, and hence why he's no longer the offensive coordinator here. And so I think imagine the offense if they're not playing behind the sticks for a majority of the game, right? Where you're not asking for CJ Stroud to bail you out on third and second and longs, right? Where you just open up the offense a little bit more and just you're able to protect your QB. Let's start there, right? And so just if you do some of the basic stuff, picking up stunts, some of it wasn't necessarily a talent issue to me. It was more of a schematic and a coaching thing. And so that's why Tytus Howard has been open about and so giddy of why he thinks things can change, right? And so they definitely move some of that talent around. Of course, Laramie Tunsil was out, and they moved on from Shaq Mason. Of course, Kenyon Green is no longer here, so certain spots, you're going to have a natural upgrade. But the question is, can you protect CJ Stroud's blind side, right? You can complain about Laramie Tunsil's penalties all you want, and I'm not dismissing that because it was relevant. However, you didn't really have to worry about him a ton, out there on an island protecting CJ Stroud. So who's going to do that? Here in Stroud's year 3, will Stroud trust him, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why we saw a lack of, similar production from his rookie season is I don't think he trusts the offensive line, where I thought some of his basic fundamentals were off because he was worried about the timing and the clock because he was worried about somebody being in his lap so much. And so pause. But, that's part of the game. So, like with Kaylee, like if they can just do some of the basic stuff right, and then you add on if he's able to bring other elements, which you like to believe he can. You upgrade that wide receiver room. Another year of Nico Collins, and if you hope that he can stay healthy for majority of the season, he was the best wide receiver in the league up until he got hurt.
Talk to him, baby. Let's go.
The eye test say that. Now, what if Jamar Chase? Would you have called him? I don't know. Jamar Chase is that special. However, Nico Collins was the best wide receiver up until that point. And so,
facts, dude.
What will Christian Kirk look like in this offense and with an upgrade at quarterback, right? It's the truth. Let's see. What did the Texans get out of Nick Chubb? So these are certain things that I'm certainly looking for on the offensive end, and then defensively, they didn't make a ton of upgrades, but that's, as I told somebody else this earlier, they didn't have to. They had one of the best defenses, in the entire league, and so they returned a lot of those players. And if Stingley could continue to stay healthy, what can he do? To piggyback off of what was an All-Pro type of season. Will Anderson, can he continue to take that jump? Danielle Hunter, one of the best defensive end duos in the entire league, and then you bring back the Sheldon Rankins. We haven't really talked a ton about him. But he's a guy that I'm to watch. And then, can Christian Harris get healthy? Will we be able to see him return back to what we saw closer towards the back end of his rookie season? So these are all the type of things that I'm looking for as we head into training camp for sure.
Turn me up, man. Let's go. I will say this. Chancellor knows ball. In case you didn't know, Chancellor knows ball. You just spit every fact that I've been preaching for months. You got me hyped. I guess we're kind of we kind of think similarly. And I think just from talking to you, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe you are a little more concerned about the O-line than I am, but it sounds like you're more so concerned about, which I think is a very valid point, is the left tackle position primarily. And, you go from all-pro left tackle, penalties, yes, that helps get you behind the sticks, but you also know as a quarterback, I'm good over here. But I will argue too, when that trade did happen, at first I was like, why would you trade the best O-lineman on the worst, on your terrible O-line? And then once I thought about cap and then just overall, it made sense. I would take an average overall 5 linemen that are this good as opposed to this guy's good, this guy's bad, and just having this, inconsistency. So, but the bigger point too, I also thought about and looked at is something we noticed last year. Interior pressure is much more impactful for a defense than exterior pressure. So if I had to choose, hey, would you rather have pressure on the left tackle and not on the interior, or vice versa? I'll take the left tackle all day. We've seen what CJ can do. He's an athlete. He's got an innate sense where he can, make guys miss. But when it's up the middle, and it's less than a second, you really can't do much. So that would be my, way to feel better about that. But I think you're right. And, hopefully Kaylee can get creative. But that was dope. I just asked you a simple question and you just went on a rant and spit it out. That's what I'm talking about. You're passionate, this stuff. You talk about it. That's dope to me. But I guess one other thing we can talk about in the Texans and maybe wrap up here with you in a minute. It's been about 50 minutes. I don't want to keep you too long. And some of the stuff, that I speculated on a lot. What's funny to me is like a lot of things that happened last year and we're hoping would get corrected this year. We speculated on, and a lot of it was from watching the games. But you can tell, like for example, like CJ Stroud, it felt like he had no control of the offense. Like he wasn't setting the protection. Like he wasn't really able to set audibles, and tempo was bad, and like this and that. And then people would kind of like, well, how do you know you're not in there? Like, well, I can freaking tell. And then you hear a reporter say it, and then you hear CJ say it, and you hear Nick say it. It's like, yes, that's what happened. Like we're not dumb. So the question is, how do you feel, CJ Stroud having more command of the offense, which is what we're hearing will help this offense going forward?
Yeah, I think it certainly will help, and I think what excites me the most is that CJ Stroud is excited, right? So, I think you want to cater, your offense in ways that your players feel comfortable. And it sounds like CJ Stroud, this is what he wants. All right, you're gonna get it. Now make sure he has to go out now. The ball's in his court, right? For him to maximize that opportunity. But yeah, I think it helps if he's able to set protections, and he clearly has a mind for the game. He watches film, right? We know he knows he knows spots, the weaknesses in the defense. And so when you allow a guy like that to, kind of be able to go out there and do that on his own, I think it certainly, helps him. And so, it is interesting, with him now changing over to a new offensive coordinator. He was comfortable with Slowik, but obviously I think that marriage, it just didn't work. But this is what he wanted. All right, well, Kelly's gonna give it to you, pause. And so we'll see how he's able to take advantage of that for sure.
All right, we got one more question too. Shout out Silent Sarah. She asked earlier. She asked if you noticed Blake Fisher at practice and how you think his battle's going, or any insight on that.
Yeah, I definitely was seeing, if there was a jump from Blake Fisher. I would say the biggest thing that I just noticed was actually him talking to the vets, and whether it was Titus Howard to some of the other guys they brought in through free agency. They were just in his ear, like after every single rep, every time he came off the field, chatting with him and telling him what he could do better. And so he certainly was soaking up a lot of knowledge and gain. And so he'll have an opportunity to compete for that job, particularly at right tackle. And so I would say this is the first time in a while, at least since I've been on the beat, that they've had like a serious positional battle, right? And this time it's an entire unit. And you don't really see that a ton. And they talk about they're going to put their best five out there, and we'll certainly see once training camp starts in a little bit over a month, or less than a month now.
Yeah, and the O line to me, like I'm excited about it. Like to me, the unknowns are a good thing, especially when you compare it to last year. And I've been kind of preaching this. Like last year, the five was like pretty much set. Like the first year with D'Amico and CJ and Bobby, the O line was like patchwork and was pretty good. And so our collective mindset as fans, like, well, we're getting our highest paid, highest drafted guys back. They're going to be really good. And it turns out they were way worse. And maybe part of that was the complacency of not having that competition of iron sharpening iron. And now it's the complete opposite. Like to me, from what it sounds like, is Titus is probably the only guaranteed starter. And it looks like maybe right guard, but it could be wherever. So to me, like most people look at that and think it's a bad thing. In my eyes, it's a good thing, especially after what we just went through. I mean, would you see some silver lining in that too?
Yeah, I think that's certainly fair. I think if the Texans could have it their way, they would have, hey, look, we know where our offensive lines want to be, but this was kind of part of their rehaul, right? We're gonna try to change the mentality, the culture of this line. I think I started, with their coaching, whether it was offensive coordinator to the offensive line coach, and to now and trickle down to the talent there. So like I said, I think as you're right. I think competition is a good thing, but it is actually much easier if you do know, like, competition is a good thing, but it's much better to know that's my QB, right? I don't have to worry about guys splitting reps. I know that CJ Stroud, in which we obviously, I'm not, no breaking news here. CJ Stroud will be a QB1, but it helps to know, like, hey, we're settled at this position. Offensive line is probably another unit that you would prefer. Like, hey, we know who's going to be here. I think wide receiver, maybe your wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. that's maybe more of a position that like, all right, cool, we're cool letting the cream rise to the top. But it certainly would be better if like we know that CJ Stroud is protected, across the offensive line, but they brought in a number of different pieces through whether it was through the draft or free agency, and guys will get their shot, and and we'll see how that plays out over the next month or so.
And that's a good point. And, obviously we'll see how it shakes out, like you said. And I had Brandon Thorne on, I believe, a week or two ago, and he's like an NFL O-line scout. He's like a savant guru. And we talked about this. And there's like a fine balance between having the competition and then knowing when to somewhat set it to now develop continuity, which is what you're saying pretty much. Like you want to know, but then two, like, from my understanding, offensive line, like we saw it last year, communication and cohesiveness is key. Like there was pretty much none of that. And like you mentioned earlier, it wasn't a personnel issue, it was coaching and mental. Like we were just letting guys run free because they weren't on the same page. So obviously that can be rectified by coaching, but we didn't see our starting O-line together until like the last day of training camp, right? So it's like they had no reps and rhythm together, and we kept giving them excuses like, okay, like, well, week 3, week 4, like now they're just getting going. And obviously it never happened, but so I think that's a great point, and there is a balance to it. So I would assume like, a week and a half, 2 weeks into training camp, or, whatever halfway through is, we might see like that initial, that expected number one group. But regardless, it'll be exciting to see. But I'm hopeful they can, get it figured out. And like we said, if it can just be marginally better, at least the pass pro and run game, it should look good for us. So, Chancellor, I've enjoyed having you. Spend almost an hour. Before you go, feel free to shout out all your stuff. And if you got any other, closing thoughts or anything, just let me know. And then if and when you're ready, there's like a button up top you can hit, and I'll probably stay on and do some Q&A. But I really appreciate the talk with you. And I will say this too. You do a great job like posting videos, and I've learned like as I've gone through this journey of doing what I'm doing, I try my best to like be respectful of people's content, like, and not, steal or co-opt on stuff. So if there's any times like I'm posting your stuff and I, do it the wrong way, tell me. Some people I know like aren't on every platform. So if they're not, then I'll try and post on here. But like my whole thought process is like, if someone beats me to a video, or if, they've already posted it, then I just try to repost it. So that's just something I want to say. Just want to make sure you don't think that I'm just, stealing your stuff if that ever happens.
No, if I'm being honest, and it's a conversation that has been brought up before amongst media, but I think you do it the right way, and not everybody does that. I think you do a good job of just showing love for the most part, and not for the most part. I think in general, I have zero complaints. And just talking to some of the others on the beat, I think pretty much everybody would agree. Like you do it the correct way.
And if I ever don't, it's not like on purpose. Like I hope like the kind of guy I am. Like I'm not trying to.
But that's the thing, though, is like I think we can tell, right? We can tell somebody who's just notoriously just ripping stuff, right? And so especially like, it is tough, right? In 2025, and in this industry and in media, where you could do most of the leg work, and then somebody with a bigger account could just take it and run with it. Now, the other thing, the glass half full, is sometimes it does actually expose whatever work you did to maybe a different audience. But just to your point, like I have zero problem with it, and with how you go about it. Because like I said, you always show love, so not a problem at all. But no, man, I appreciate you for having me on. And as I mentioned, like I meant that, like I think with what you're doing, I think Sarah was on earlier. Like I've seen her stuff. Like I think you guys do a good job of sharing stuff. Whether it's local to national, wherever the case might be. I think it's important to like I said, keep fans engaged. And so like I said, I appreciate you for having me on. It's certainly been fun. And certainly follow me on social media platforms, Chancellor TV on TikTok and Twitter. And so appreciate you for having me on, man.
I'm sorry for this last couple of minutes. I forgot to plug in my light, so it keeps going out on me. But no, I mean the respect's mutual. We'll have to do it again. And if you ever need anything, feel free to hit me up. And again, thank you as well as all the other people on the beat for your hard work. Y'all make it easier and better for us to be Texans fans, so we appreciate that. But if that's it, man, we appreciate you, and we'll catch up with you next time.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, we'll see you.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Yeah, that was dope, man. Chancellor's the man. That was cool to get to know him. He does a great job. Like I mentioned, the thing I like about him that stands out to me is his coverage is very energetic and hype. Like, like everyone kind of has their own style. And I've noticed that about him. It's very engaging. I like the passion and enthusiasm. I guess I can kind of relate because I get hyped talking about this. And you saw, when I asked him just a simple question, this damn light. Hold on one second. Uh, we'll just do that. There we go. That'll solve the issue. Now I look terrible. But anyways, yeah, I mean, just like the fact that I asked him a simple question about the Texans and he just, went off on a rant like I would do. He's like this, and this, and this, and that. Like that's the kind of stuff I love, man. Like you can tell he's passionate about it, but he also knows he knows ball, like football, but he knows hoops. Like I'm gonna start hitting him up for my hoops opinions because I follow him, and if you don't follow him, he does a great job covering the Rockets and the Cougars men's basketball. So he's really good at what he does. But yeah, I mean, let's just do a live Q&A and catch up. I kind of, the best way to do that, I believe, is to kind of go through the timeline. And I think what I might do is, for whatever reason, man, my IG didn't connect. So let me see if I can get that going real quick. I'll try and just BS in the meantime to keep the dead air out for the podcast. So, again, for my stuff, as always, do a bad job at it, but trying to get better at shouting out my stuff. If you don't, please follow me on all platforms. Even if you don't use certain ones, you can do it, or mute me on another one if it's too much or redundant. But with that being said, it's at Texans Commenter on X and TikTok and YouTube. On X, I'm about to be at 20K. I need like 200 to 300 more, or I need like less than 200 more. So X, get me to 20. TikTok, I'm at 34. TikTok's crazy. I got to find out a way to connect it back to live on here. They're tripping on me. And YouTube, like, recently freaking took a jump. And I've been trying to like get it to monetize. And I'd been going through it, and I was eligible, and then I think I wasn't, like, I couldn't get it to work. And I think it was because maybe I used like video clips of, like NFL Network, and maybe it was banned or whatever, even though I try and like put my analysis on it. So I deleted a bunch of shorts and like rebuilt it up for like months, like through live streams to get the watch hours. Just got eligible and then applied, and it, didn't do it. But the thing is, YouTube doesn't tell you anything. Like, nope, this doesn't work. Like, okay, well, why? Like, what am I doing? So anyhow, but YouTube's doing good. It's like 10.6. And then IG's been good. So IG, Instagram, and Facebook is at Houston Stressans, STRESSANS. And Instagram, I'm like 14,000, and Facebook, I'm like almost 8. Instagram, I started like later than, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter, because that's why the name is different too. I got locked out of it somehow. And then Facebook, I started even later, but Facebook's been doing good. Shout out to Facebook fam. I'm live on there right now. I enjoy interacting with you guys. So, but yeah, if you don't mind, follow on all. And I'm trying to do this Instagram. It's not working. So sorry, Instagram. And then, of course, too, the website, www.houstonstressans.com. I got merch. I got blogs or articles. I got a free newsletter you can subscribe to. I got a video player. I'm working on like an AI thing where you can ask Texans questions and information. I got like a directory of everybody that's a Texans content creator with their information. And now I have the ability to add your own page. I think I should pull that up and add your own store. So if you're like a content creator and want to promote your brand, let me know. I can partner with you and work out a deal to kind of set up your own shop and put a little extra revenue in your pockets, or at least just give you cool merch for you and your fans or family and friends to wear. So let me see if I can share my screen real quick. Let's see, share right here. And so we got this. And I think I'm going to have to pull up a separate link, but let me go on X real quick and find this from James. I guess it's going to be hard to find. I don't want to waste time, but this is the media page, and it's got everybody. But, so James Roy with the bullpen, he said he wanted merch. And I was like, hey, bro, I can help you set up a store. So these are like the generic pages. You can like add a bio, embed your YouTube, and have all your links here. So like if you have a page, or anybody who wants it, like if you don't want to pay for Linktree, let me know. And this can serve as your link tree. So now, instead of using Linktree, just use HoustonStressans.com/media/your name. So that's just, trying to provide value there. I think I might try and like get this going. Like, I think it'd be good to like get this into an app, but something I've been wanting to do is to connect the, get the like Discord going. It'd be cool. Just like another avenue for people to kind of have conversations. And it's on me for not pushing it, but we got 31 members. I think it'd be cool, to kind of get our own little topics going there and try and kind of corral all of us into a certain area would be dope. But there's a lot of potential for stuff on there. But my issue is there's so much damn Texans content. I can never like stop and work on stuff like this. I'm just like, always getting the content. So obviously got the store. Here's the James's stuff from the bullpen right here. So I hooked him up with that, and it's pretty much seamless. I got Astros stuff. I got Texan stuff as well. Let's see. I got a whole Don't Sleep on Houston, Rocket stuff, Nico. Got Stingley. Got a 3D thing my cousin makes of my logo. Hawk and Lock 281, Houston versus everybody, Free Aziz, Will Anderson Jr., CJ Stroud. And if you ever have an idea for a shirt, let me know. Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter, Step Brothers T. So I mean, it's definitely cool stuff there. And right up here in the top right is subscribe to the free newsletter. And then I got like a video player as well, which I found a way to like embed playlists from YouTube. So pretty much all the new stuff, like you can look at my stuff or like, interviews. I mean, it's all here. Like rather than you going to find it, I'm already looking at it. So I'm going to aggregate it for you. It's just a way for me to, make it easier to be a fan is the goal there. So I think the thing we will do now is, and who knows how long this will take, but catch up from like the past, as much as I tweet the past week or so on the old timeline and get us caught up with all things Texans. So probably a lot of stuff y'all already know, but what I like to do with this is I understand a lot of people don't have time to follow it as closely as some of us do, the Texans, that is. So, like if they're listening on Apple or Spotify, it's called Second Guessing with Stressan. I try and just, go through all this stuff so you can have it in one consistent, and I wish I could do this like daily, but with my schedule, it's just easiest. I have this one night a week. I start at 9 and just go as long as I can. That sounds kind of crazy. But yeah, so that's kind of what I do with that. And it works for me though, because I'm kind of like a binge personality. It's like, overdo shit. So I'm still scrolling on my timeline here. Here, I'll switch it over to this. We're gonna have a lot of good content to go through for this show. Let's see. We're almost, man, because we had CJ Stroud was at Fanatics Fest. So he had a lot of good content there. We had the KD trade, which we talked about. That was a lot of good content. There's a lot of stuff. And there was some videos from Mark Vandermeer and John Harris, Jarrett Patterson, Braxton Berrios. There's one today that I need to get caught up on, but man, we're almost there. Scrolling down. So that's kind of where it starts. And so I'll start off with this. I think Berrios is a good place to start, but okay. Yeah. So Seth Payne was the last time I was live. So, and maybe with him, we missed some stuff. Let me just make sure. No, we're good. We are good, right? Let me see. Here's a graph from Football Insights at fball_insights. Good account to follow for like graphs and stats, but yards per route run leaders versus zone coverage the past 2 years, 2003, 2024. Nico Collins is number 2 besides Puka. He was number 1 in the same graph versus man coverage. So he's a beast, underrated. And so Ime was extended. We talked about that. And we went through the Jalen Knoll podcast last week with Amon-Ra St. Brown brothers. Sorry, I try to mute myself on that. Sorry for that awkward throat clearing. But so getting back to the timeline here, let's see. This is dope. This is a CJ Stroud. This random account said I've posted this yet, but just using a piece. It's possibly the best QB play I saw last year, and it's Stroud versus Green Bay. And so we're on the 10-yard line. CJ takes the snap, and it's a zone blitz. They drop both Mike backers out. The edge rusher gets a hand on his collar. He steps up in the pocket and throws across his body to the right for a touchdown, which was dope. So, just going back through, kind of going through some more. That same guy kind of posted a clip of CJ Stroud, and it's like a 4-minute video. It's dope. I would recommend watching it. But yeah, we'll talk about Braxton Berrios. So let me just do the clips and then I'll tell you my thoughts on this. So let's see here. Here's Berrios right here.
It's a lot, and it takes a lot of repetitions. And even when you've taken thousands of repetitions, you're not always right. You know, you might have the right cues and the right keys, and then all of a sudden they did something different. And you go to the sideline and said, hey, they did something that we did not expect. You know, normally when they're in that look, they roll to this, and they didn't. And it's really like it's all in preparation, really. You know, compartmentalizing. Okay, it's too high. Who am I worried about? It's one high. Okay, there's no safety. What's going on? So it's like really like breaking it down step by step to where like when the ball snaps, you're expecting one of two things, right? Instead of like trying to read 12 things. Exactly. And that's all it is. And that all is preparation and experience of figuring out, okay, this is telling me that I need to do this.
And so if you listen last Wednesday, that's what I said, like how you diagnose a defense. You look at the safeties, 0, 1, or 2. If it's 0, it's going to be cover 0 more than likely. If there's one safety, it's either going to be cover 1 or cover 3, which 1 is man. And if it's 2 safeties, it could be 2, 4, 6. You know, it could be some kind of shell coverage. And that's what he's saying. Like you look at certain stuff, it's like a process of elimination. But I'll let him finish here.
Just going with it.
Yeah.
I got to accumulate, pre-snap, post-snap. The main thing about the game in the NFL is it goes faster, right? Everybody's fast, everybody's big, everybody's strong, and so the margin for error just it shrinks to so thin. And so I think really the football knowledge and the recognition of coverage and where the soft spot is, and to see what the quarterback is seeing and kind of feel what he's feeling, speed it up if they're rushing, if they're blitzing, if it's an 8-man drop, okay, we have time, depth, and spacing. It's really those things that have really evolved in those years.
Braxton,
that stuff we didn't see last year in our offense, and I think Nico was capable of it and Tank, but Tank got hurt, and Steph got hurt. But after that, I feel like the other people, especially at the slot, didn't have that ability, which is crucial. Also, coupled with the fact that I feel like that offense didn't really allow for that. That's, like I mentioned, if you need to speed up, like if there's a blitzer or run around a guy, it's just, the quarterback and the receiver be on the same page, but it comes from coaching and experience. And Braxton Berrios, I think, is a very underrated signing. He is a veteran who knows ball. Like those were 2 examples of him pointing out some great things. And then something else about him is this clip in the kick return. We forget he is an former all-pro kick returner, but here he is on the new kick return rules.
24, and this year, touchback to the 35-yard line. You got to be a fan of this.
I'm a big fan of this. I was a fan last year. Obviously, I don't think it spiked the numbers that they wanted to as far as returns go.
Right.
And so now, I mean, it's almost a punishment to the kickoff team to kick it into the end zone. I mean, you give it to the other team at the 35-yard line, and the scoring statistics, from the 25 2 years ago, if you start on the 25 versus when you start on the 35, or it's a big difference.
Yes.
So I'm very excited, and I mean, really at this point in time, I feel like there's going to be a return every single time, unless it's a weird game plan thing. But it should be fun. We're going to get a lot of ops.
So the kickoff rules were created to first they reduced kickoffs for safety. And then now they changed it, because no one returned. Everyone just kicked in the end zone. Now they changed it to where, we scooted it up. And so now it's safer and we'll get returns. But it still turned out that there wasn't any returns. So now they changed the rules again to incentivize returns. And Braxton Berrios is saying, I think there's going to be a return every time, because the penalty is you start at the 35. And he mentioned if you're an offense and you start at the 35, your chances of scoring are pretty high. So you would much rather take the alternative and take the risk of making them return it. So that now increases the value of a good, experienced kick returner, Braxton Berrios. And he's aware of that. So, I feel like I had another clip on him, but I was going to make a tweet after, posting these things about him. But in my opinion, he's a lock on the roster. So last year, most teams keep 6 receivers in the NFL on their roster. Last year, we kept 7, and the 7th was a receiver / returner, which was Steven Sims. I think that guy this year will be Braxton Berrios. First, before that, I don't know if we mentioned in any of these videos, but maybe I missed it. I need to see if I can scroll down and get it. But, obviously I forgot that he was drafted by New England. He was in New England, I believe, with Nick Caley and Klopovich. So there's that connection there. He's familiar with the offense. He talked about his time there with Brady and how he learned more in that, 1 year window, whenever it was, than anything else in his career. So that's definitely, something that's very valuable. And like you can tell by listening to him talk, he understands defenses and all the, things about reading a defense, soft spots, being on the same page with your quarterback, options you have as a quarterback, nuance to route running, when to run around a defender, stuff like that. So that's definitely something to look at. And then here is CJ Stroud playing catch with Bryce Young at Fanatics. And here's CJ. Now he's shooting hoops. First one was he had one shot to throw into the hoop. This is actually from Chancellor. Shout out Chancellor. Reposted his. He kind of aggregated some of these, or put them together from House of Highlights. Now it's CJ hooping. He's balling, dude. He's making pretty much every shot. I wonder if his shoulder's okay. Yeah, Brandon, look it up. I'm pretty sure Berrios was drafted by the Patriots when he was there for 1 year. And I didn't realize that until I listened to that interview. So anyways, there's Stroud shooting hoops. He's a walking bucket. And then just kind of scrolling up. Let's see what we got. Shout out Texans on 3. I saw them there. Why did it do that? Brett Coleman had a tweet that said, among all cornerback groups in the NFL last season, the average passer rating allowed when in press coverage was 80.7. The Texans, meanwhile, allowed a passer rating of, drumroll, 13.6. They had more picks and PBUs in press, 13, than first downs allowed, 12, all season long. That tells me a couple things. First, the obvious, Derek Stingley Jr. and Kamari Lassiter are elite, especially in press coverage. 2, D'Amico is a madman and likes to blitz. 3, we're getting home on the blitz to prevent that from happening, because that is, if you have press man coverage, unless that includes, cover 2, we have safety help at the top. But more often than not, press man coverage is, when you're pressing, it is like a risk reward. I mean, you have the ability to get beat. So, basically, if it's a risk, if you don't get the pressure home in time, you can get burned. So it's a multitude of those things. This was hilarious. I was at a bar in San Antonio when I saw this.
This is what we saw. It's heated, and unfortunately, the Halos.
Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown is a dog, dude. That Neto guy is such a biatch. Dude crowns the plate, gets hit, and almost swings at the ball, and then complains about getting hit. Morgan Wall was in Houston, and Andre Johnson walked out with him, and Mattress Mac, which was crazy. Yeah, so Brandon says, I guess he joined the Pats and didn't have any stats with them and left for the Jets. Was he drafted or signed with the Pats? He might have been drafted or signed and was kind of backup practice squad, or might have been injured. But let's see. Keep scrolling up. Tell my boy Tony from Houston. He's got a sick Stroud rookie card. And so Hunter Brown said, the F you say to me, let's go. Standing on the effing plate, man. Get the F out of here. Yeah, man. That shit was crazy, dude. Old Neto. And then, PFF has the best duo in football as Stingley and Lassiter based off their grades, I believe. So they got something right there. And then Brandon says Braxton Berrios was drafted then injured. Yeah, so that's valuable time he spent in that building, dude. And if you look back, like a lot of the people we're bringing in are from that, system connection. So they're bringing in experience. So, and then just scrolling up, got a whole bunch of stuff to get to. KD was on stage when the Rockets news broke, but he knew.
We'll see what happens, but I am excited. Great young core, great coach. I think we
he knew he was playing cool. He's just smiling. But yeah, so that was dope. That kind of, took us by storm on Sunday. Shout out Dylan Brooks. That's a big miss for us. I mean, I think it's worth noting, what he did to help build this culture and, the current iteration of the Rockets. So, the future success we have, he'll definitely have played a part in laying that foundation. So shout out Dylan. He's a player that before he was on your team, you didn't really, you kind of hated, but once you have him on your team, like, man, this guy's a dog. I love him. So I'll always be a fan of his. Man, yeah, a lot of Kevin Durant stuff on the timeline, kind of scrolling through. I thought the trade was good. We didn't give up a lot. We didn't give up any of the future Suns picks. So that gives us flexibility. And in virtue by getting Kevin Durant from them, they got worse. And now the picks that we have from them are going to be better as far as position in the lottery in the future. And you kept Jabari, you kept Tari, you kept who else was in, Şengün, obviously that you heard some stuff on that, but no way in hell. You kept Cam Whitmore. So that was dope, man. I mean, and I think a byproduct of that too is now, currently we'll see if they make another move. I meant to ask Chancellor that, but they seem like they're posturing themselves now to potentially get a shooting guard, with the money left. But currently it has Ahmed Thompson at the shooting guard, which would kind of free him up more, as opposed to playing him at the 3, which he did last year, kind of in between. But there's a lot of options. I love it. KD, he's going to, Jabari Smith comes to mind as someone who will benefit. Here is a post from Chancellor. Shout out my guy, Chancellor. This is when he interviewed him back at the Cactus Jack Charity Foundation baseball game, and it's about Kevin Durant.
Man, bro. KD was my favorite player growing up. I told him that when I first met him 2 years ago, and he showed me love ever since. So that's really respect. He's a big brother of mine, and I definitely have a big fan of his, and just appreciate him just even saying what's up to me yesterday. It meant a lot.
So he was asking about seeing him at the game. And then, KD, after the panel in the back room, he threw up the H, and they say it's raining in Houston.
Told him, Houston, we have a problem.
Kind of did a little straight. It's raining in Houston, he needs to work on that H a little bit.
Told him, Houston.
We'll take it. Yeah, and then he said Raining in Houston by Drake is a song he always has to play on game day after finding out he was traded to the Rockets. What else we got? Yeah, this Kendrick Perkins video is pretty funny. It's pretty dope.
This may sound country and foreign to y'all, but this is the H-Town flavor, right? Hey, man, say, man, Kevin Durant is on the way to H-Town, man. We talking about Bun B firing up, getting the Trill Burgers ready. Right. Little Kiki, Paul Wall, Slim Thug, right. Pulling out the slabs with the Super Poker rims, popping the trunk with the KD lights. See, it's foreign to you, but H-Town know what I'm talking about. You know what?
That's where you live. You better know it. Represent.
You're welcoming Kevin Durant, and now you're legit title contenders. Legit title contenders. Yes, they struggled in the half-court set. They also struggled with three-point shooting. Right. Now you've got KD. Amen Thompson is still there. Tari Eason. The reason I bring up those two guys is because they bring what you need in today's game, what we're witnessing right now in the NBA Finals, and that's elite perimeter defense. This may sound
it's crazy. We kind of took the Thunder from the Thunder and their championship, or at least it feels like that for us. I'm sure they're fine, but it feels like the KD trade. NBA schedule of how they do things is weird. You have this trade deadline essentially before the draft, right after the finals. So all these trades go down. It takes away from the finals. They got to kind of schedule that stuff out. But yeah, so Stroud was buying a card. He bought a Kobe card when he was at Fanatics Fans Fest. And then let's see what it says here. Wendy Windhorse highlighting the importance of the Steven Adams extension and landing KD in his future extension. Shout out the Steven Adams stats, fun, AK iStats on X. He says Adams knew what he was doing, and he accepted a team-friendly deal, which Adams is a former teammate on the Thunder of Kevin Durant. And then DJ Augustine, his former teammate at Texas, is now an assistant coach. Royal Ivy, former teammate at Texas, is now an assistant on the staff. Ime had coached him in Brooklyn as well as the Olympics. He's worked out in the past couple summers with Jabari and maybe I forget who else, but there's definitely a lot of connections and parallels there. So Just scrolling through, seeing what else we got. Here's CJ Stroud getting introduced at the Fanatics Fan Fest by Kay Adams.
Exciting young quarterbacks in the league. They are on a hunt for some hardware. First up, he's taken his team to wildcard playoff victories in both years as a starter. And NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2023. Let's hear it for Houston Texans quarterback CJ Stroud.
Aura. He's a confident man right there. Let's go.
Young
oh man, I can't wait for the season. Yeah, and then he taught Bryce how to golf. The funny part is when it starts, he says, "Hell no." Here's schooling up Bryce. Lock your arms. It's pretty decent here. We're gonna need to get, after we get that bowl this year, maybe you can start golfing a little bit. That's what I want to do this series with, Texans players golfing at East River 9. Just walking and talking and doing a couple holes. That'd be dope to do it with CJ. That's a pipe dream, but there's plenty of guys on the Texans like to golf. But yeah, so he gave them advice, lock your arm, use your hips, here's the grip. And he's saying, and he hit it. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was better than what the first shot was. So that's funny. He can't help but be a teacher. And we could watch that video. That's kind of too long. Here we go. Here's a good one. This is CJ Stroud at Fanatics Fan Fest, and this is about his 2024 season.
CJ, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Last year, you've talked a lot about it. You faced some adversity, which I'm sure you grew from. We've talked a lot about it. What is the lesson from last season?
That's a great question. I think for me, something that I've learned just in life is you can't be scared of failure. And the only chance you have to be successful is to try. And sometimes that comes with successes, sometimes that comes with failures. I think the more that I fail and still, do well in those failures, the more confidence I gain that, it'll become easier, kind of like what Eli is saying. So last year was very, very, very helpful for me in my development. I think every year, you're playing against different defensive coordinators, different schemes, and they're studying your tape from the years prior on how to beat you and how to twist the pocket and how to roll coverage. And they're just doing things to throw you off. And the more you can focus on you by still, making sure that you're taking care of the football and knowing what they're doing, I think that, honestly, you can do anything that you really want. Really all of us, Peyton and Eli, you've seen them be great for so many years. That's what they did year and year and after. So I know us three, we're trying to do the same thing. So just learn from your mistakes and, just really get better from those. And that's been.
These two dudes are just wearing Mighty's Ducks jersey in the front row. That's hilarious. Sorry.
Just really get better from those. And that's been my mindset.
And you control what you can control. You and Caleb got sacked more than any. You guys literally got sacked more than any of the other quarterbacks in the league. Bryce, you also know about getting sacked a ton.
Facts.
Caleb, you were nodding
so that was
your
dope.
head.
That's a good answer. Talking about failures, the more you fail, the more confidence you gain. So it's all about perspective, and how you take away these things. So, and he seemed to be pretty good about, owning the blame for last year. And deep down, he's like, yeah, the freaking scheme sucked, bro. Oh shit, my guy Grafa 08. He says, Texans commenter, you are the GOAT. You hear me, the GOAT. Appreciate that, brother. Appreciate the engagement. You're always showing love, man. Tapping in on here, on X, everywhere. Appreciate that. So here's the James Roy, his page that I was showing. So this is if you're like a content creator and want your own updated pretty much website, this is what it would look like. Let me make my screen. There you go. So look, he's got his own banner, got his own icon, all this stuff right here, all of his socials, got his store. So real sleek. If you want something like that, let me know. I'll set it up for you, man. Just holler at your boy. Let's see. So go back and let me go back to Twitter. Oops, X, my bad. Not Twitter. It's going back through. over at Fanatics Fan Fest, he was asked about advice he would give to Caleb Williams, which I don't think that Kay Adams was aware or meant to do this, because obviously he gave him advice after the week 2 win against Chicago, and that was the whole dumb ass, he little broed him and who does he think he is type stuff. These people that don't know CJ Stroud, like we know him as a person from interviews, or his personality, I should say. We don't know him, but like we know the type of guy he is. And people thought it was like a cocky, arrogant thing. And so he leads off with a funny joke and then kind of gives a good answer after that.
I don't know if Caleb likes my advice. So.
I don't know if Caleb likes my advice, because that was funny too, because it was twofold. Like, one, people said that he was little broing him, and two, people assumed that Caleb was ignoring him, which maybe it kind of was, but he had just lost, and I don't, his demeanor didn't look great, but you can't fault him for that. I don't think it was him thinking like this guy is trying to tell me. And so like people overanalyze the crap out of that.
This player. I mean, honestly, like I just said, like teams, they prepare more. They know what you're good at. They try to just cut that off. It's like playing basketball. If you find out a guy can't go left, they're going to try to force you left. So whatever your weaknesses are, whatever.
That's a great point, a great analogy as far as, and I downplayed the crap out of the sophomore slump notion that, teams have more film on you. So, I think it is definitely a thing. I don't think it is as big as what it is, but I don't think it was as minimal as I said it was going to be. When you talk about, like, it came up a lot in this panel, but it's, and obviously too, it happens to the coordinators. Coordinators have to adjust as well. You have to adapt. So it's twofold. It's the quarterback and your tendencies. Okay, when he does this, he's doing that, or, oh, he can't throw here or that. We're trying to force this with this coverage. So, I think there was a little bit of that with Stroud, with anybody. You do good, they find ways to, it's a adapt and evolve, ever going deal. So, but yeah, I definitely think it was twofold.
You've put on tape and film, that's what defensive coordinators are watching every single day. And they're just trying to find twists and schemes. And the main thing, they want you to extend plays every time. And if you learn how to just like sit in the pocket,
which is what Stroud had to do last year every time. He couldn't sit in the pocket. There was no pocket.
And when it's not down, like we're playing in the shell league, like it's cover 4, cover 2, cover 6, cover 5, like all these different 2 high coverages. If it's not there, bro, just get it out your hand, And I think I told you on the field,
and so he kind of needs to heed to his own advice a little bit. Easier said than done, but I feel like that's one part of his game he can do is check down. But last year was so tough because we were constantly in 3rd and longs. He had to try and force it downfield because the check down wouldn't do much. But I think it's part of being a young quarterback. When you're so good and talented, you always want to get the home run. But I think that's an evolution for every quarterback, is you become more disciplined and making the less flashy plays. And part of that too, for me, is him. I've been saying this since after his first year, the thing that I wanted to work on, and he started to do it late in second year, but is running wise, like Mahomes, especially down the stretch, close games, down the stretch in the playoffs, running, taking those cheap yards. You drop back, you got 5 yards, take it, slide, take it, get out of bounds. That's the same as hitting a check down. So that kind of goes hand in hand, rather than sitting there. And he's aware of it, so easier said than done. So like the fact that he's saying it is great, and I think he'll obviously improve on it. And again, the situation matters too. And now if he's, not already in 2nd and long, then it's easier to take that check down. And now if you're already behind the 8 ball after a loss on 1st down from a negative run play, now it's easier said than done to take the check down, because now you're going to be 2nd and 11. So, but, I think that's something he'll improve on. He's aware of it, and the new scheme with Kaylee should definitely help that too.
Just the less hits you take, the better, because it's a long season. I know you went through that, because it's 17, 18 long weeks, and then you add playoffs on there. It gets long. So the more you can.
Here, let me zoom out. Here, hold on. Look at Caleb Williams. Remember last time, like the season, they're like, oh, he don't care what he's saying. He's listening to him now.
Add playoffs on there. It gets long. So,
and I don't think that he's thinking, who's this guy? Tell me this. CJ was asked to give him advice, and some people are going to see this and like, oh, he thinks he's smarter than he's trying to tell him what to do. Like, no, bro. Like, it's a brotherhood. It's a fraternity. How many quarterbacks in the NFL? 32. How many young quarterbacks? There's like 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, there's not a lot. So, like, who else can you talk to, bro? Like, for people that like see this and think that like this is, someone being egotistical, like get over yourself. That's not what this is.
The more you can get down, get rid of the ball, check it down, and just be smart. Like that's the advice I would give, and I think you're going to do great like you always done. So.
And then he compliments him. But yeah, you know what? CJ is full of himself. He's super cocky. Yeah, he's a terrible guy. He thinks he's better than everybody. Like, no, that couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah, and then Windhorse, when talking about the KD trade, we'll just play this real quick. Or I don't know if you're going to listen to Windhorse talk for 2 minutes, but he basically saying that Durant kept rejecting trades. So, like, we learned that, like, he only wanted to go to a handful of destinations, like, didn't want to go to Minnesota, didn't want to go to Golden State because of Kerr. And then Anthony Edwards didn't want to try to convince him. And so he wanted to go to Houston, San Antonio, or Miami. Miami didn't have enough capital. San Antonio didn't offer enough. And we offered the best, but, we all three basically lowballed him. So we got him for a steal, essentially. And it was kind of dictated by KD. And it comes out more through the coming days that when he's at Fan Fest, he's like, yeah, I dictated stuff. Like, and I know people kind of get upset by that, but I mean, it benefited us, He was able to kind of choose where he wanted to go and make the deal work without us, giving up an arm and a leg to make it happen. So another question from Kay Adams to CJ Stroud at the Fan Fest about poise and leadership here.
Quarterback could have as you're sort of listening to them talk. Where does poise rank?
I would say poise is probably 1 or 2 spots below leadership because I think poise has to do with being a leader. Your ability to not ride the waves and ride the roller coaster and have poise is, I think, the pulse of the locker room. When you walk in, and this is something that I learned in college, but kind of like Eli said, it takes another scale when you're walking in a huddle and it's a 2-minute drill and it's the last play of the game and you have a dude with 3 kids staring at you in your eyes, ready to get the play. Another guy, who's a grown man, just men, wanting a leader, it reminds me of like just the great leaders that came before us that weren't in football, and like Martin Luther King Jr.
Well, real quick before he gets to, like, that's a good point too. Like, you have like grown men, alphas, and he's saying wanting a leader, but like they also have to respect you to be able to have you be their leader. So like, for like a 22-year-old kid to command a huddle with grown ass men like that, making millions of dollars. Like, you have to be like mentally like, and that's to me like his mentality, like he's mature. Like, I feel like he grew up from listening to him talk like this. He's like been destined for greatness. Like, you have to have that mindset at an early age. Like, if you don't have that belief and mindset, then you can't do it no matter what your tools are. But he has both. And this is a big part of it. But yeah, let him finish what he's saying about being a leader.
Great leaders that came before us that weren't in football, and like Martin Luther King Jr., Moses in the Bible, like there's guys that I look up to that like I would just imagine how they would approach a huddle, and that's the type of poise that I try to strive for. I think it's right there.
That's pretty insightful to say stuff like that. I know some people may kind of hate on it and say it's cheesy or corny, but I mean, just from listening to the type of guy he is, he's genuine and he means it. And I mean, it definitely shows like, the way he leads like we talked about Chancellor earlier, like he leads from a place of like respect and not, like he's better than you, like it's out of caring. So
with leadership and that's how you win and lose games. Cause like both of these guys are saying, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to throw interceptions. You're going to turn the ball, you're going to fumble. You're going to make the wrong IDs, wrong protection calls. But that poise will allow you to move on, make the next play, not make that same mistake. So I'm a huge advocate for poise. And even when you do make good plays, it's not just about the bad times, but the good times, like the good games. It's always about going in that locker room, enjoying the win for a little bit, but moving on as fast as possible. Because it's next game is always the hardest game, and I think that poise definitely happens on both successes and failures.
And this is the convo that Chanton had earlier to start our stream about CJ Stroud and his leadership and how that matters. But it's an undervalued characteristic or trait for a quarterback, and that's also too like when I'm arguing with people online, like defending CJ Stroud, like, oh, his stats, this and that, like it ain't all about this BS stat that you see with the messed up environment. Like, it's the intangibles. Like, I've watched his film, I've seen his talent, and then you listen to his makeup, all this stuff matters, the intangibles. Like we talked about earlier, Tom Brady was the GOAT because a bunch of that, but a big part of it was this side of it, the leadership, being a great leader. That stuff matters, dude. Like, he's got it. He's special, man. I can't wait for the season. This was dope. I was watching the receiver panel. It's not Texans related, but it's hilarious. It was CeeDee Lamb was on there, but he didn't say anything, so I didn't say his name. But Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Keegan-Michael Key realizing that there's a signer at the panel is pretty hilarious, dude. Let's see. I got it muted here.
Who's signing?
He's signing, yeah.
That's cold. How he know what I'm about to say? Oh.
Look, my man, he's paused. My man is like this right now.
He's waiting.
He's waiting. He's just waiting.
Wait. All right. I mean, for me, man, that's fire. What? That's fire. Like, he knows, like.
I know. It's fast. It's really kind of creepy how fast he could do it.
Wait, so what would happen if we started, like, doing, like, amigos and we did, like, ad-libs? Could he do ad-libs?
He's doing it. Hey.
Remember when Kyle did the intro and Kyle said, Jack Marius Tactheratrix.
Wait.
Jingle McCringleberry.
What would you say if I went like, Hannah Montana, Hannah Montana, Hannah Montana, Hannah Montana, Hannah Montana?
I got my name. I got white. I got my.
That's my man. Give it up for
that's funny.
The signing.
That's fire right there.
Oh,
cold.
man, that's great.
Hannah Montana.
This is the best panel of Fanatics Fest.
That shit was hilarious.
Rubbing in the back, they missed out.
Oh, yeah, dude was stealing at the Galleria and jumped off the second floor onto the skating rink. That's wild. Shout out Figgy Fig. Figgy Fig posted that. Shout out Kay Adams. She quote tweeted me. That would be dope to get an interview with Kay or to get on her show. Who knows? Let's see. Yeah, so Ross Villarreal, Sports RV with 790 says MLB strength of schedule remaining by opponent win percentage per tankathon. The Astros have the 30th easiest remaining schedule with a 480 win percentage. Mariners 19th, Rangers 8th. We're in a good spot. And then Pena hired Scott Boras to represent him. We know how that has gone with past guys with Bregman and Cole and Correa. Hopefully it's not the case with Pena. We'll see what happens. Speculation about a Harden return. I said a blessing or stressing. A lot of people are stressing about it. I doubt it would happen. Not really sure how I'd feel about it, but I think that might get like a Derek White signing or someone that can just be a solid shooter at the 2 would be dope. Let's see here. Keep going. You know, obviously it says shout out Brado, BRADEAUX NBA on X. He says that Shams, I don't even know how to say his last name, Sean Arena. I should know. I just know him as Shams. Says that he may be willing to take a pay cut and sign a 2-year extension, which would be dope. Daniel Jones has a significant lead over Anthony Richardson in the QB1 battle. Shocker. I mean, that's I've thought he was better and actually think this was a better move for them to get him. I'm more scared of him than AR, honestly. And yeah, like I said, you know, Jabari had worked out with KD last year as a video of them working out. And then KD was in the gym just after the trade. I mean, this guy's a walking bucket, dude. This is insane. If you watch this right here. That's exactly what we needed, dude. All he has to do is just stand up and shoot. He's already taller. Boom, right over your head. Bop. But yeah, it's a pretty cool video. Get you hype. Jaden Higgins working out, running 60-yard dashes. Very impressive in the 6.6s. You know, someone who had trained like this before and done speed training. That may seem like not a big deal, and he's not moving fast. But at his height and weight, you know, 6'4", 220. He's on turf. He's in a 2-point stance and not a 3-point stance. He's wearing tennis shoes. It's laser timed. That's very impressive. And it looks like he's barely even exerting. And this is just, you know, he's not trying to like run a race. He's just training. So this is him getting right. But, you know, the point of that drill is to work on his top end speed to, you know, get him right for camp. So, and then Pro Football Talk had a power rankings. They had the Eagles at 1, the Chiefs at 2, the Bills at 3, the Ravens at 4, the Lions at 5, the Commanders at 6, the Rams at 7, and the Texans at 8. And then it was the Bucks at 9 and Broncos at 10. I think it's fair. Yeah, I think we could be as high as 6 in there with the Commanders or Rams. But I get it. Like, we got stuff to prove, but I think we'll, solidify ourselves early. And I was looking at the schedule last year, bro. Like, we started, as bad as the season went, we started out hot, dude. We were like 4-1 or something crazy. I could definitely see us getting off to a hot start again. But let's see here. Keep scrolling. Here's KD giving praise a couple years back on a stream for Şengün.
Listen,
Get some love to Alpha.
Oh, that was tough. Sorry about that.
Şengün.
Şengün, I like Şengün.
Listen, people sleep,
like
but listen,
Şengün.
I called the game with Baron Davis for the Clippers, and they were playing him. I said it early on, he nice. And he did something, and Baron was like, what? I said, he nice. Şengün,
nice.
Go ahead.
When it confirmed it to me when he dunked on, he was dunking on a couple people.
Oh my God, yeah.
I didn't know he can get up like that. He's nice. I like him. I think he's gonna be a good player. Like, he's gonna be a nice player. Yeah.
And Şengün be swaggy coming through the game too. I love it.
I ain't know nothing about him. I ain't know that much about him until I'm like, let me lock in on this dude.
He got passes. He be diving. He nice. I like Şengün.
KD's been a fan of his game, so that'll be dope. And like I said, he said that he dictated the move. Kind of going back through, got Jarrett Patterson. And so I made this tweet. I will play the video and then give you my analysis after.
I think that's, I'll say like that week, the 2 weeks.
This is with, obviously these Texans videos are with John Harris and Mark Vandermeer on the Texans YouTube. Shout out those guys. They do a great job with these interviews.
Yeah, I'll say like that week, the 2 weeks prior, we kind of had like a similar run game plan. A lot of that was
This was asking about the Kansas City divisional round drive to start the third quarter. That was like 10 minutes. I'll start over.
I'll say like that week, the 2 weeks prior, we kind of had like a similar run game plan. A lot of that was Pop. That's he wanted to kind of go along with that. I think that's the bodies we have in the room are great for what we were trying to do then. Yeah, and it just shows that we have the ability to run the ball. And now obviously we got to be a lot more consistent, and everyone's got to be locked into the communication and how we're going to run the play. But yeah, I mean, that was, like you're talking about, that was probably one of our top 5, top 3, if not the best drive we had all last season. Unfortunately, we didn't win the game, but that kind of shows that we got the guys for sure.
How is
my damn light keeps dying, so I'm gonna keep it like this for a minute. I'm gonna be like in the dark, but this is what the hell I've been saying all freaking year, bro. And I tracked it. Like, if you watch my Twitter, like, I knew the wide zone didn't work for us. If you watched, the games, you could tell that wide zone didn't work. And when we ran gap, which wasn't often, it worked. So wide zone, more of your, lateral plays were, it's more vision based, whereas gap is like, duo and whams and trap, where you basically just say, hey, here's the hole, freaking hit it. And for Dameon Pierce, it works better. He's, I'll just run through a wall. But anyways, and he said, he said everything. He said that we ran a scheme that was better. He didn't say gap specifically, but it's obvious. Like, if you go to the PFF split, so I plan on doing an article breakdown on this, but let's just pull up PFF right now and look at this crap. And I feel like I made a tweet on this, but I was tracking it all year. So, in the wide zone, you're like heavy, obviously zone. But let me look up, who would I look up? Should I look up Texans? Let me just go to NFL teams. But yeah. And so basically, and I said this, the last 3 games. So just starting from the end, going backwards, Kansas City divisional game, playoff game against the Chargers, and then week 18 against the Titans, which was a non-consequential game for standings, but we were, locked in and not looking great O-line wise. It was an important game for us to get our mojo back, and the O-line played the starters like at least 3 quarters of that game against pretty much the starting D-line of Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat on the Titans pretty much the whole game. So, people can say it was a BS game, but they were meaningful reps on both sides. and we ran the ball well. There was a big DP run, but we started running gap scheme then. And the key thing is he said that Cole Popovich is the one who finally got them to do it. Like, we were watching it, and I've been saying it all year. It's obvious. He said we didn't have the personnel to run wide zone. Wide zone you need typically. You can still do without, but ideally, if you want to be moving in space, you want more agile, smaller, cerebral, technical O-linemen as opposed to big body, slower, mauler guys. Those guys you want just to block the guy straight in front of you. Hey, run that motherfucker over. That's what gap scheme is. And this goes back to the conversation we've had 100 times, and they pointed out when they hired Kaylee, and this happened with Chancellor. Slowick tried to fit a square peg in a round hole. He didn't put his players in the best position to succeed. Rather than build an offense around his players, he built an offense. He built the players around his offense, which, again, we've talked about. It's not really his fault. They got him in. That's his scheme. It's the only one he knows. So he tried to implement it. And, as far as they knew, this process might have taken longer, but, we've been better than what we thought. So it takes time. Also, too, the wide zone is very technical. It takes, a lot of my research, what you see. It's like the year 3 is the year you finally get the run blocking down, but unfortunately we didn't have time to wait for that. So, and so that was a tough dilemma for him. I'm sure Bobby didn't want to abandon, the wide zone. And we talked about with Coach Dan Casey on here, the offensive guru. He also said too, that it's hardest to flip your whole playbook because you may have not worked on these other principles or run plays and you're limited on them. But to me, it was so dire that we needed to run gap, and obvious that it worked better, that it should have been at least addressed earlier on to have as a backup plan, or you say screw it and just go with it because desperate times call for desperate measures. And we finally did. And so this also goes back to the one voice thing we've heard D'Amico Ryan say multiple times when talking about Cole Popovich as the new O-line coach. Obviously, we fired Slowick, we fired Strausser, and kept everybody else, promoted Strausser as the assistant O-line coach to the head O-line coach. Initially people are saying, why would you promote the assistant O-line coach when the O-line was terrible? Well, it's turned out from all of our great reporters and from what we're hearing now, and like I was preaching, he probably had no say. You can't just assume that. And that's what the D'Amico is telling us by promoting him. And it turns out everything we're hearing is exactly true. But, but he finally got to have his opinion voiced. And when he did, it worked. In that Kansas City Chiefs game, we were running the ball down their throats. Pause. The Chiefs could not stop us. I thought we would win that game because they could not stop us running the ball, dude. You saw it in the opening drive in the third quarter, 10-plus minutes, marched the ball straight down the field. The only problem was we kind of got away from the run and got into predictable pass situations, but the run game was gashing them, dude. And we kind of screwed ourselves, honestly, with some of the decision-making with D'Amico, going for field goals, not going for field goals. Going for field goals and then going for that fourth down. So those decisions to me is kind of what got the game away. But the run game was killing it, and it killed against the Chargers. It killed against the Titans. And it was because it was gap scheme, which I've preached on this show every freaking day. And what it projects to run with Kaylee, who Nick Kaylee was, supposedly reported by Brett Coleman recently, brought into Los Angeles to help Sean McVay transition from zone to gap. And so he implemented already. Similar situation. We need to do the same thing here based off personnel, running back, O-line, etc. Yeah. So, I'm super pumped about it, but I did a tweet about it. It says Patterson confirmed what I've been preaching. The run game took off late last year because we leaned into a gap scheme over zone. And in his discussion with Mark and John Harris, that 15-play, 82-yard drive versus KC, 10-plus minutes, and the 2 games before, all gap heavy. He credits Cole Popovich for the change. D'Amico said we needed one voice in the O-line room. That's why Popovich replaced Strausser. Slowick's wide zone never fit our personnel. We had big physical linemen, not agile movers. Took nearly 2 years for us to adjust. I tracked it all season. Our best rushing games came when gap runs outpaced zone. Now, with Popovich running the O-line and Nick Kaylee as the OC, this offense projects to feature even more gap scheme. And so that's basically all the same things I just said off the top of my head. But I plan on writing an article on that and diving into the numbers. But I don't know if it's worth kind of going through right now. Let me see if I can pull up the Texans. Go to schedule, and I don't know if let's see premium stats. Let's see. Texans, team reports, offense, rushing. And so this is by team rushing. Can we go to schedule? Let's go to schedule. And I will show, we'll just look at the splits. We'll see what it says, if this crap will work. I said schedule. All right. Let's go to rushing against Kansas City. We'll work our way back. We had, for the total, let's see, run type, yards. Where's the yards at? Let's do yards first to show. Run. Where's the freaking total yards at? Snaps, attempts, yards. We had 149 yards for 5.1 yards per carry in that game. We were gashing them, bro. And let's see, run type. We had 10 zone runs to 13 gap runs. And you know what? It should be even higher. But, we'll see as we go back. It was normally like zone and then gap. So, boom. It's right there. And so I tracked this all year because I knew it's what we needed to do. And I was like, what are we doing? And so let's go to the wild card. We rushed for 168 yards, 4.9 yards per carry. That's pretty good. Zone to gap. It was closer, but it was 15 to 12. That also includes, and obviously, Mixon gets more. He was 13 to 11. But yeah, so that's much better than what it was. And so this also alludes to the fact we talked about with Coach Casey. Says you can't just up and change it. So we couldn't just go straight into gap. We had to kind of still mix in zone. So as good as this was, it could be a lot better. And this isn't me just saying it's like fairy dust and you just do this and that's it. It fixes it. But this was a glaring problem. But that may not seem like a big deal. But as you'll see, relative to the rest of the year, basically a 1-to-1 ratio is much better than what we were doing. So, and I will say, too, the gap play action is much better than the zone play action. And so back to week 18, we had 207 yards, 7.1 yards per carry. There obviously was a long of 80-plus yards from Dameon Pierce, which could kind of throw that off a little bit, but nonetheless, still good. And then the splits, 13 to 13, 1-to-1 ratio, zone to gap. Let's go. And let's go back and look at week 17. The ratio was 10 to 6 zone. So, okay, it was higher. Maybe we're starting to do it then. That was also a weird game script. Week 16 against the Chiefs, 8 to 6. So, that's really a small sample size. Against the Dolphins, 8 zone runs, 4 gap runs. Week 14. Come on, bro. Load. Cramping my style, dude. What is it doing? It wants to load, but it's not. What the frick? You see that shit? What are we doing, PFF, internet? Come on, dude. Man, we were flowing right through. We're about to be done. Maybe if I stop sharing and then load it. Ooh, that worked. All right. Share screen. And we just did Miami. And so week 14. And it's doing the same damn shit. Come on, bro. This is great content right here, huh? How about I just kind of look at it and tell you what I see on my screen? Or it's still going to mess up. Come on, man. This is crazy. I just want to show my friends what I'm looking at. Come on, dude. This screen is tripping on me, bro. Let me just go to week 1. Yeah, it worked. Okay, so week 1, we had 30 zone runs to 5 gap runs, which we had 213 yards rushing. So it was working early on, but that was against Indy and it worked. But that's just to show, okay, hey, we're a zone team. Cool, it's working. Finally, the zone's working. Week 2 against Chicago, 12 zone runs, 6 gap runs, only 75 yards. So that's not good. And then we had Minnesota. We had 9 zone runs, 1 gap run. Obviously, game script's a deal, but the ratio way off. So later in the year, I showed you the 1-on-1. It seems like, oh, it's not a big deal. But now when you look at early in the year, when it's like, 3-1, 5-1, 6-1 ratio zone to gap. Big difference. It should be closer to 1-1, or it should be like, 1.5-1 with the gap, at least in my opinion, with our personnel. And then, I kind of made a point that once Joe Mixon got hurt, that's when we started to see the shift from, more gap runs. And that's when things somewhat did better. So against the Jaguars in week 4, we rushed for 101 yards on 26 carries, 3.9 yards. Not terrible. I mean, that's average, I guess. You'll take that. 9 zone runs, 12 gap runs. No Joe Mixon. Cam Akers was the lead back. And then you go to week 5, and you got, again, no Joe Mixon. Cam Akers is the lead back. And we had 28 attempts for 94 yards, 3.4 yards. Not great, but it was 8 zone carries to 15 gaps. So I was like, okay, we're going towards gap. Awesome. Good job. Cam Akers still isn't ideal. But again, you're transitioning to something that you're not quite ready to do. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, we started to have that trend early on, which is crazy. Like, my suspicion from looking at this earlier is true. Like, when Joe Mixon was out, we started to run more gap. And then now the Patriots game, insert Dameon Pierce, who is a much better gap runner, but his splits was, he had 8 carries, 76 yards, 9.5 yards per attempt. He had that big run, which was on a gap run. And his splits were 5 zone carries to 3 gap carries. But then overall, it was 14-11. So still better than earlier in the year. It's closer to a 1-to-1 ratio. And we rushed 28 times for 192 yards. And then week 7 against the Packers, Joe Mixon's back. We go back to zone. We rushed 33 times for 142 yards, 4.3 yards per carry. So not bad. So, I mean, this is, I can see too, like, at times the zone rushing worked. At times the gap rushing worked. At times it wasn't like, crystal clear, but I mean, it's just tough. Like, and also too, you should point out with the zone runs, you're much more likely to get TFLs, which results in all these drives starting behind the sticks. But yeah, so as far as the zone to gap splits, now we're ticking back up 16-11. Okay. And you'll see that trend to continue to go back. So it started out heavy zone to low gap. And then we had, when Joe Mixon got hurt, okay, closer to 1-to-1 or more gap. And now it's trending back up to more zone to gap. Well, yeah. And then in this one here, it looks like, against the Colts, again, week 1, we gashed them with the zone. We had 29 carries for 96 yards. Not great. 20 zone, 7 gap. And again, it could be week to week, based off that defense. So we can't hyper focus on it, but just showing the trends here. And then against the Jets in week 9, we had 36 attempts for 187 yards and 5.2 yards per attempt. And it was 19 zone to 9 gap. So this was another instance where, zone, running worked. And I don't know if that was based off of O-lineman personnel in the game that week, if they just played better, or the defense you're playing. So again, like, you see some, numbers that show both can do good. But to me, and what, Jarrett Patterson said and what finished out with, like, the gap running is what really would be best. And especially if you just consistently ran it. But again, I get it's hard to abandon an offense you're trying to set a foundation for. And then for me, this is when the zone scheme really died for us, was week 10. Let's see if I can share my screen now. I don't even know if y'all care to see it, but I don't want to mess up, but whatever. This is when it died. Week 10 against the Lions, a lot of the zone running was working. It was just like how CJ Stroud with bad pass blocking would just make something out of nothing and scramble and make a play. Joe Mixon did the same thing in the run game, where you would run out to the left with the wide zone blockers. It would be muddied up and he would cut back. So a lot of these zone rushing numbers with Mixon can be inflated by him, being Superman. And teams caught on, like, okay, hey, they don't block the front side. Joe Mixon just cuts back because he has nowhere to go. And so the Lions were the first team to be like, hey, we're just going to leave this backer waiting for the cutback. Joe Mixon would go, cut back, boom, he's right there, shit. And so this game, Mixon had 25 attempts for 46 yards. We had 28 total for 56 yards, 2 2 yards a carry. This is when we got cooked on the zone. Like, this was the end of it because we were not blocking it well all season. And, you know, the only thing keeping it alive was the cutback. And this was 17 zone snaps to 8 gap snaps. And then now we go to, so it seems like late, maybe they tried to transition, but that's a crazy ratio, 2-to-1, over 2-to-1. Week 11, Cowboys. This was, let's see, you know, I guess the Cowboys are just terrible. Zone worked in this game, 25 for 141, 5.6 yards per carry, not bad. And then it was 14 zone to 7 gap. So we're still running it, but maybe the Cowboys weren't smart enough to pick up with what the Lions did, which, you know, week 12 against the Titans, pretty bad L. We had 17 carries for 40 yards and 2.4 yards per attempt. So another stinker. Guess what the splits were? Again, game script matters, but the ratio is important. 12 zone to 2 gap. So I guarantee you if we cut that film on, the Titans did exactly what the Lions did and just shut us down, took away the cutback lane. And we had nothing to do after that. And then week 13 against the Jags, we had 25 attempts for 108 yards and 4.3 yards. Again, I'm just doing totals, so these could include rushes by CJ. Again, zone. So, I mean, that's okay. I mean, it's not terrible. It's better than the 2 yards, you know, per carry. But again, the split 15-5. And so I'll write an article and I'll put this all on a table and lay it out, maybe do a graph or something. And now it's doing the same crap where it's not showing. So it kind of gets stuck there, but you see the trend. You know, this is the long rant going off of that about Patterson, but I think that pretty much, you know, gives us a clue. I will run through the rest here. It's been a while on the show, but whatever. We got some more content to cover. So here is a post by Sideline Sarah. Shout out Sideline Sarah. It's Darius Slay on the Mina Kimes show talking about Nico Collins.
Who I had went up against one time that had like, I was like, oh man, this man got some stuff to him. But dang, at that time he not who he is now. Nico Collins was so underrated to me.
He's not underrated anymore, I feel
Not
like.
no more. That's why
Maybe
I
year
said,
one,
like,
though.
he's the first one that came to my mind was like,
yeah. What is it about his game that makes him so good in your mind?
Like the fact that he's big, he can run, and his routes look like he's running at like he's 5'8". You know, so like he can stop on a dime. Like he was very underrated for a minute, but now it's like he's where he's at. But
He might run the best dig in the NFL, I feel
I'm telling you, like he get up out the breaks and like when he catch it, he gets vertical, crazy.
Yeah.
He
At
gets
his
vertical.
size, 6'4", the breakaway is crazy.
Yeah, and he running past a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Like he run past them with big boy posts, like you wouldn't think it. So he was my real true underrated, but now
Yep, no longer underrated. He's where he needs to be. Parker McCollum was on Pat McAfee earlier this week.
Expectations here for the Texans season. The Patriots got Stephon Diggs. Thank you for letting
grab
him
a water
go.
while this
Really
plays.
appreciate that. But are we looking at a serious run to the Super Bowl, or is this just going to be another boring home playoff game, then lose in the second round again type season?
Whoa. I don't know if that was a question or a literal attack on the entire Houston Texans football organization, but I mean, I have a feeling that the Houston Texans and the Houston Rockets and possibly the Houston Astros are all going to have a ring with another ring for the Astros here very soon.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if that's this season, but I know this football team has the makings of they're so close to being a really, really, really sound competitive football team. And they've been right there the last 2 years. Last year struggled, I think, kind of expected with CJ coming off such a high rookie year and just a record-breaking rookie year. But I think once he settles in, and I think he's going to play like a veteran quarterback like he did his rookie season. And you know, I don't know who in the world is going to play on the offensive line, but we may be so good that we don't even need one.
Love that. No offensive line needed. Seems like it's a
Talk
good
your
time
shit,
in
Parker.
football to not have one of
Love
those.
Parker. Gold chain cowboy. I agree, man. It's good times in Houston. So, PFF did best QBs of intermediate passes in 2024 for their grades. Lamar Jackson, 97. Jaden Daniels, 96. Herbert, 94. Burrow, 93. Stroud, 92. It's crazy he had that grade even with all that pressure. CJ Stroud's in Italy right now. He went to the Milan facilities. I got to close that because they'll dock me for the... So he's getting a jersey. We got more on that, though. But YouTube will dock you for that. So, but yeah, so Brett Coleman, this is pretty cool. He quote tweeted that tweet I showed earlier about Jarrett Patterson talking. He said, Texans man blocking percentage by week. This is what we just went through, essentially. Weeks 1 to 13, 7%, 29th. Weeks 14 through divisional round, 22nd, 22%, which is 9th. But really the line of demarcation was week 18. And that's what Jarrett Patterson told us. He's like, that's when we change the scheme. And that's when it's more 1-to-1 or, a little bit more gap than zone. Yeah, so that was definitely the change in philosophy there. And okay, so CJ Stroud was at Inter Milan.
Your personal symbol is, or if you have our symbol is the snake. What do you think your personal symbol is, or if you have a symbol of the team you play for?
Well, ours is kind of like a bull. I love bulls. I don't consider myself like a big, like, strong bull. I'd probably say like a tiger because, like, they're like in the shadows. They like to be like sneaky. They don't ever like attack head on. They like to finesse their way to their kill. So I would say for me like a tiger, but I actually do like snakes. A lot of people don't like snakes. I love snakes.
Great. We love them too.
That's pretty funny,
Thank you for being
genuine
with us.
answer.
And if you want to say hi to the team.
Yeah, so they asked like what animal would be like his symbol for him. And he said a tiger because they're sneaky and they kind of finesse their way to a kill. It's a pretty cool answer. And said he likes snakes. Pretty funny. And then here we go.
I like the trophies. The trophies are really cool.
CJ Stroud at Inter Milan asked about what he liked and what he saw in the facilities.
Of Inter, how have you liked it so far? What did you see? Something that you liked in particular?
I like the trophies. The trophies are really cool. Just all the history, and then the wall of the years of where it's back to the start now to where it is in the present. So just the history of everything and the trophies, all the wins you guys have had, it makes me want to win. And so yeah, it's been cool.
If you were of Inter,
love it. Let's get one soon.
Have you liked it so far? What did?
This was funny.
I'm finna come and support. Hey.
I love you. This is the Houston Rocket.
I know. Hey, he know I'm finna.
This is Micah Parsons right after the trade happens at Fanatics Fan Fest with Kay Adams talking about Kevin Durant.
This is the Houston Rocket.
I know. Hey, he know I'm finna come and support. Hey.
All right.
That's my dog. Slim Reaper.
Slim Reaper for life. Okay, one last one for you.
So my takeaway is, Micah's going to be courtside with CJ at all the Rockets games because they're both big KD fans. I mean, who isn't? But maybe he'll come to Houston eventually. And then scrolling through, we're almost done, fellas. Let's see what we got. Anything else? I'm in Taunton in the lab. We have Darrell Taylor, who was on Good Morning Football today. And he is, to me, a very underrated signing, as we talked about.
Because, I feel like I left a lot on the table in Chicago. And, I'm in a great place where, the offense is, going to do their thing. And, we have a great coaching staff to, be able to put me in position to be able to help our defense out this year and, make a lot of plays. So I'm excited about that. So that's the reason that, I feel like I'm, playing with much of a chip on my shoulder than I ever played with. So I'm just excited to be there and excited to offer what I got, my skill level to the Houston Texans, man.
Yeah, and he was a player that he was a player that left like a lot of meat on the bone. Like he talked about missing sacks on the field last year. So, he definitely it's just crazy. Like people hyper focus on sacks, but like he's right there and just misses it. He could have had 3 or 4 more. He could have made $2, $3, $4, $5 million more dollars. It's just crazy how that stuff works. All right, this one is dope. This shit's going crazy viral. It's got 11,000 likes. Damn. So this was on that same panel.
And CJ.
Peyton Manning talking about CJ Stroud. This is some good stuff right here.
And CJ, I always talk about how hard it is as a rookie to play. CJ kind of goes, obviously it's not that hard because he dominated as a rookie. And what does that do? That it gives defenses more film to look at to know what they have to do to try to stop him in his second year, right? As a rookie year, you know, they don't know what you're going to do. But guess who gets to figure out what defenses are doing? CJ does by watching film this season. Go, oh, this is what they're trying to do to me. Watch me counter this with this type of play. So, you know.
I'll pause right here. That's like the first part of his point. That's a great point. So it is like a game of cat and mouse of constant adjustments. And this happens with OCs too, which I guess Bobby didn't get the chance to now counteract. It was too late. But like year one, you're kind of new and they don't know you and you have that advantage. And then year two, they now know you and now they have an advantage. But then now you can see what they did to you. It's like this constant like back and forth. It's just the evolution, the ebbs and flows. That's a good point by Peyton.
You know, everybody wants to judge right away. Oh, great rookie year. Second year, by the way, he went to the playoffs in his second year. It was 22. Let's be careful saying it was a down year, okay? I didn't win a playoff game until my 6th year, right? And so he's 2 for 2, and that's all he's trying to do is give the Texans a chance. He's got a great leader. You have a new coordinator as well. But with D'Amico leading the charge, right, there's going to be tremendous, you know.
So, yeah, I mean, perspective matters. You got a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's like, chill the hell out. Y'all are like overreacting. I didn't win a playoff game until my 6th year. He's already won 2. And he's won 2, right? He won the Chargers and anyways, yeah. So he's 2 for 2, you know, almost won against Kansas City. We're right there in that environment. So yeah, man, I mean, like this perspective matters, dude. F all these like BS stats, but here, I'll let him finish too with about D'Amico.
Leader, you have a new coordinator as well, but with D'Amico leading the charge, right, there's going to be tremendous, you know, accountability and, you know, talent and just leadership every single year. So there's my ESPN2 analysis.
And what's funny too is like all of these legends and greats, like they like Stroud and they're high on Stroud because 1, they see the tools, and 2, like this intangible stuff we've talked about, leadership and mindset and teammate. Like I guarantee you they sat down and listened to him say these words. Like all these clips we just showed, like Peyton and Eli were sitting there. They probably walked away and like, damn, like that's a very impressive guy. Like, and Brady's the same way because they've built a relationship and like, just like, and you know, it could be corny and whatever, but like they see like the passion, the drive, the will to be great. And it's genuine. It's not some phony stuff. So I guarantee you, like up until the season, when things start to ramp back up and people will get on TV, like, and these quarterbacks are around, we're going to see a lot more of these clips, you know, of these guys praising Stroud because his mental makeup is there. So another answer from Fanatics Fan Fest, CJ Stroud, about heading into year 3.
Your pressure maybe isn't on you this year. Do you feel that, or just as much or more pressure?
I mean, there's outside pressure and then there's internal pressure, and focusing, in my opinion, on outside pressure is.
By the way, are y'all in the chat or what? No one's talking. Make sure let me know you're in the chat. Let me get a couple comments. I feel like I'm talking to myself right now. I'm kind of lonely. Let me know you're in the chat.
Really hard to match or to meet that expectation, but it's fun. Like, yeah, it's like Eli said, we play an entertaining sport. Everybody wants to be entertained. Everybody wants expectations to be on platforms, to be, you know, the guy. And it comes with a lot. And for me, I mean, you can't accept all the good, all the great, all the fun, all the wins, and not accept any of the bad. It's part of the game. So for me, when things come up, or like last season, so to speak, not having, you know, exactly the season I wanted, but, you know, still going to the playoffs, still, you know, winning another playoff game, you know, there's still positives in that, and there's still a lot of learning. And I'm only 23 years old. I believe I'm one of the youngest quarterbacks, and that's no excuse or no like pat on my back. But I know for a fact I have a lot of learning to do, and to be able to get so close to winning, you know, 2 divisional games. Well, not the first year. Baltimore got us pretty good, but to be in the game with Kansas City all game and playing in that atmosphere, learning. I know if, you know, God ordains that for us to be back in that position, if we do what we need to do. The experiences that I've had in the past will help that on what it takes to win in the fourth quarter, because that's really what the game comes down to. So I can't say that like last year was a good or a bad year in my opinion, but internally my expectations for this year are probably higher than a lot of people's outside do what we need to do.
I'll stop right here and do a couple things. I guess there's people like there's like 800 plus viewers, but I guess people are kind of in and out. But yeah, maybe they're on vacation. But good to know there's a couple people listening right now. And I guess too, maybe it's just you're chilling, listening. I'm just kind of, I know we do a lot of Q&A, and it's probably hard to ask questions when I'm just talking my ass off and not really allowing room for it. But so far on this answer from CJ, he pointed out like he's gotten that experience. So he's going into his third year, and he's already been to the playoffs twice, the division round twice, on road games twice, both in loud, cold environments twice. And, he says he wasn't close in the Baltimore game. It was a tie game at halftime, and they literally had a 10-minute drive to start the third quarter, and that was game. So that game to me was close. And again, both times, had no weapons besides Nico Collins. And, but anyways, like that's can be all excuse making. But the point is, like he mentioned too, like this is valuable experience for him to learn how to win in those environments, to know what it takes. He's way ahead of schedule. Like the only guy that's ahead of him is Mahomes, who basically was crushing it from his first year, which was his second year. Well, his first year, but his second year of eligibility. Excuse me, hold on. But yeah, so anyways, like as Peyton just pointed out a minute ago, he's way ahead of schedule. He's already gone there twice. Peyton didn't go till his 6th year. And then he had to go through like those years of, figuring out stuff. So, yeah, so I mean, he's way ahead of schedule, getting valuable experience. So it's only going to get better, but I'll let him finish his answer right here.
The experiences that I've had in the past will help that on what it takes to win in the fourth quarter, because that's really what the game comes down to. So I can't say that like last year was a good or a bad year in my opinion, but internally my expectations for this year are probably higher than a lot of people's outside expectations, just because, I mean, for me to be able to, do some of the things that, God has allowed me to do, and to be blessed enough to win Rookie of the Year and to be in the playoffs twice, I know the sky's the limit. Like, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, 6, I would have like, man, you have.
I'll take that.
Yeah, like I have no shot to be who I am. I would have never thought, but it's nothing but like Eli said, and preparation and the hard work when nobody sees. So I think my year 3 expectations are, whatever I really make them. So
what are they?
Super Bowl.
My guy.
My guy.
My man.
I mean, I'm gonna go on the Peyton tip. No list.
Yeah, as a pass, he didn't want to get held to some, quote or whatever. But yeah, that's good stuff there. I mean, at the end, he talked about, what did he say at the end? I'm kind of spacing out. I checked my phone. I was making sure the Astros won, which they did. Back-to-back shutouts against the Phillies. Astros are rolling. But yeah, I mean, he has like the right perspective. He talked about, the games come down to the fourth quarter, learning to win there. So, yeah, and the question was about pressure. He said that like there's internal pressure and exterior pressure, which exterior is like the noise, us, media, whatever. He says like he doesn't really listen to that. And he said that, he guarantees, or he feels like, I bet that my own pressure is even more. So the expectations, and my takeaway too is like people aren't expecting him to do much this year. But I think he's expecting that he will do like crazy. Like, so that's good. Like his goals are like, people may think, oh, he's not gonna do this and that. Like he's got the right mind space. We're in good hands. Ethan Weber, shout out Ethan, man. That's my guy. He says, I have mixed feelings about CJ doing these fanatic deals, would prefer he keeps all his secrets and insights to himself and not share with Caleb Williams and Bryce Young. Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I mean, I don't know that, what they're hearing from him is anything different than they already hear or know. And they may already have these conversations off to the side. I know CJ and Bryce are pretty close, but I enjoy as a fan, just like, I know people are glad he didn't go on a podcast tour or whatever, but for me, I mean, I definitely enjoyed the podcast tour, like, just seeing him, reemerge lately a little bit. He's just a fun interview, man. He's very insightful. He always gives great answers. So I kind of miss, seeing his appearances, but I get him locking in and kind of taking a step back after the year last year. Ethan says, I don't know, it could be good though. Yeah. Tremaine Allen, we not stressing, not more. Let's go, baby. Thanks for tapping in. And then he says, you got to change the name to Texans, not Stressans. So I've been saying this. I will change my name to Houston Blessings when either of these two things happens, whichever one happens first. If I get an interview with CJ Stroud or the Texans win the Super Bowl, that will be the day that I change to Houston Blessings. Shout out Warner Munoz. He says, is Ward going to make the 53-man roster because our secondary depth is not really that good for real? I think it's decent. I mean, especially for Ward, Jalen Smith can fill that role. So, and we got Jaden Reed as well. So we drafted a couple guys that could, obviously rookies, it depends. It's kind of hit or miss, especially later rounds. But Jalen Smith, who they traded up for from USC, could potentially fill that role. But I mean, I think it's too early to tell. We don't know what happened with the case with him and how that shakes out, whether he's wrongfully convicted or, what, I don't know all the jargon, whether he's convicted or not, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It could be that, the accusations are false, or it could be they were true. So, I mean, I think it's just like a dynamic situation. And I think, they definitely want to wait for the legal process to play out. And then from there, whether it's bad or good, obviously if it's good, then yeah, he's still on the roster, I would assume. If it's bad or somewhat bad, I think you can now have the ability, depending on the severity, he could be suspended, which you basically just keep him on the roster financially. But if it's like in between, then it probably might make sense to cut, even though he has a $5 million dead cap. So I do think I've talked about it will be a very interesting decision for D'Amico. This is someone he's close to. This is like the first incident of this kind with the guy currently on the roster. And so, he preaches a certain type of culture and this and that. So, obviously he's gotten guys with past deals and he's a big second chance guy. So that can somewhat conflict with the message of, swarm and stand-up character that's portrayed. But I think it'll be very interesting. And then, it did seem to me like they're already phasing him out slowly. Like he had injuries. D'Amico kind of called him out earlier at the combine this year. Like he's got to stay healthy. They drafted Jalen Smith. They got CJ Gardner-Johnson. So he's kind of getting pushed to this rotational role to begin with. So it will be very interesting, hopefully for everybody's sake, no one was harmed and, maybe what we got arrested for isn't true. But regardless, we'll have to see how it shakes out after everything settles. Yes, sir. Texans Blessings. That's fire. Yeah. Houston Blessings. That's right. That's why I say my moniker is Blessing or Stressan. I don't know if you see it like when I post, like it's like a love it or hate it. Or if you like something, say I'm blessing, we blessing, yeah, I encourage y'all to use that stuff too. I love it, man. It's like a wave. I like it. And then Tremaine says, I have a feeling that change coming soon. Me too, bro. Me too. I might have to get an interview with CJ before the Super Bowl. That'd be dope. Henry Jack, how do you feel about KD and who should the Rockets bring back? Russell Westbrook or James Harden, or play with Kevin Durant? I love the KD move, bro. I know some people are split, but I mean, like we talked about earlier, didn't give up a lot, kept all the future Suns picks, kept their young core. We needed a shooter in the half-court offense who can create on his own. He's a veteran. I get that he's old and could get injured and this and that, but like we really should just like probably put him on a minutes restriction and save him for the playoffs, but do enough to help us get a good seed and then help mentor and develop these young guys. But I love it. As far as bringing back Russell Westbrook or James Harden, if I had to pick between the two, it'd be James Harden for sure, which, I don't know if he would fit with Ime, but I think Harden still got it. I mean, I do think though at the two, they'll probably get somebody like Derek White. That might be too expensive, but I forget the other guy. What's the guy on the Sixers? I saw someone posted that. That dude's kind of nice. I forgot his last name, but like a shooter and a ball handler at the two would be nice too. But yeah, so that's pretty much most of it. Let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, so Fred took that team-friendly deal we talked about. Here's another Patterson clip, him talking about Cole Popovich with Mark Vandermeer and John Harris.
Yeah, Pop saw we have a lot of respect for him, and obviously you kind of build a relationship with him the past 2 years. I wasn't really surprised when he got the job because I know what type of coach he is and what type of guy he is and how much care he has. So he has a lot of respect from all of us in the line room. He respects us, and about him, like it's just work. And we're not gonna worry about obviously results are important, but it's, are you doing the technique?
Mm-hmm.
Are you playing hard? All those little things. That's what really matters at the end of the day. Result of the play is result of the play, but how's that play look? It could be, a 99-yard touchdown run. Did you do your job though?
Yeah.
That's
Right.
what really matters to them.
So it's one of those, don't focus on the outcome as much as what's right in front of you, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
And I think that's what's really important to O-line play. Sometimes you get lost, you could run the ball 20 times for 150 yards. Well, you got ripped off a 90-yard touchdown. You got, you're only averaging 3 yards a carry the other time. Pop solid. We have a lot of respect for him.
That's dope. That's what you want to hear. That's what you heard from the reports from Aaron Wilson, all the beat reporters, that the players, liked him. So that's great to hear. I think that's pretty much it, fellas. I appreciate y'all tuning in. We kind of got through most of it. Oh, here's a clip here to end. So Deontay Johnson was on a podcast and talked about being released by the Texans.
I was asked to get released. I picked up by Houston. Mm-hmm. And then I went to Houston. Things was going smooth. I thought I was gonna be like the way they made it seem like I was gonna be playing a lot. Like
right.
Just we want you to learn this, learn that. So I'm learning. I learned the playbook so fast, and then come game time, I'm getting like they putting the younger guys in, but I understand it's the guys they drafted, so I gotta wait my turn. But it's like, dang, but y'all was telling me
that
I'm
you're
gonna
be
get
the
this
guy.
dude.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So I checked out mentally. I just went. It was bad timing. Checked out mentally. Talked to the head coach right after the game. Like I wasn't trying to wait. Had a drug test. I'm like, bro, I'm trying to talk to the head coach. And after that, they said I was a distraction, and they released me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's tough. I don't. You take him for his word, but you don't know the other side of it. You heard that there was an argument in the locker room, which I don't know if it was true or not, but it sucks. Like he was a special talent and he was running good routes and he was open in that game against the Chargers in the playoffs, but didn't get the ball. And he said it was bad timing. So I don't know if he meant like bad timing for him to go talk to the coach right now. And like that, I could very well see that if I'm D'Amico and you're this new guy and you just came up, regardless of whether what I told you was right or wrong. And I guess the first thing you want to do is like me, maybe that's what he meant. Like, and I could see that from D'Amico too. Like, it's like, bro, we just won. Like, nah, like we're not doing that. I get both sides. Like he's a special talent, didn't work out, but he's saying that they said they're going to do this and that. But even then too, like I would counter with like, hey man, like, okay, let's just say we'll take him for his word that they said you're going to be super involved, but like you were only there for like 2 weeks. Like it kind of takes time to like roll you into the offense. Like I know he said he like hit the ground running, learned the playbook, but I guess we don't know. Like, do we know that he was? And part of it too is like he got snaps, like, but you also have to have chemistry with the quarterback. Like we know these things take time. We were in a desperate situation and needed you. Like how much of that was you not playing because you didn't know the playbook and we didn't, trust that you could be in the right place at the right time. So it's a lot of moving parts. It's kind of hard for me to really judge one way or another without knowing all the details. But yeah, hopefully it works out for him because the dude's a special talent for sure. But yeah, man, that's I think that's it. We're Gucci. I've been on here for a minute. That's 2.5 hours. Damn. Well, as always, thank you all for tuning in. Had a good time. Find me on all the stuff, all the socials and whatnot. That's pretty much all I got. Appreciate you guys. As always, if you need anything, hit me up. Until next time, we blessing.